Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Latesplaining the Interwebs. I'm your host, Nick Rekieta of Rekieta Law, a small law firm in central Minnesota. How are you guys? How are you guys? It is time for a new intro, except I don't know how to make them. So I need to do something. Oh my gosh, guys, I am wiped out. I am wiped out. Goodness gracious. Here's the problem. I was hanging out, lady rackets, sitting, good music playing. I was laying on my bed and I was reading stuff, and I was watching a YouTube video, and my cute little 3-year-old comes up to me and lays down beside me and is just watching YouTube videos with me. Nothing crazy. And then all of a sudden, she like rolls and kind of snuggles onto me, and then done. I am unconscious. I was absolutely unconscious. So it was adorable. And then I wake up and I'm like, oh my God, what time is it? And of course, you know, it's showtime. It's showtime. So I apologize for being late. It's entirely my fault. But you know, I'm going to pass the buck and blame the toddler. Well, not really a toddler, the preschooler, I guess. Vienticus Prime. No, I haven't. But don't super chat it again. Tag me in the Twitter, or in the not on Twitter. Tag me in the chat here and I'll look it up right now. I meant to do many different things today that I didn't get around to. But tag me in the chat, I'll look it up. Maybe we'll take a look at it on the show. You said it's only 3 pages. Oh my goodness. B23-0171. And that's in Washington, D.C., right? Or just Washington. Can't remember. Yeah, D.C. It's from 2019. Moderate partisan bill. Democrat 8-1. That's a moderate partisan? The one's an independent. Oh, okay. I see where this is going. Very interesting. Let's read the text, I guess. Oh, wait a minute. I'm supposed to do a different subject first. I've got this. Let me put it over on the to-do screen here. And we'll definitely discuss this in a minute. So guys, I've got a complaint. Not about you. Not about you. I still have to call the IRS. I have to call the IRS, and so today I sit down and I go, I've got a couple things to call the IRS about. One of them is weird. I've never gotten this before, but they sent me a letter asking me to verify that it was me who filed my taxes. And it's like, well, I mean, paid you a whole lot of money. I wish it was anybody but me who did it. So I don't understand why I have to call the IRS to do like a 2-factor authentication on filing my taxes. That's a weird one. It's not a scam. I got a letter from the IRS. So yes, it is a scam, but it's not like a phone call or something, or a text message. It's an actual letter from the U.S. Department of Treasury, or Department of Revenue, where I have to call in and verify my filing. It's weird. It's not a scam. Guys, this is an actual IRS letter. Okay. Anyway, this is not an email or a text message or something. It's an IRS scam, yes. But no. So it's so I don't know, but I called the IRS today. And but I was calling on a different issue for this like I said, a couple things I have to deal with them on, which is fun. Dealing with the IRS is great. Because I sat on hold for an hour and then was disconnected. Yay! It's like, God damn it! Ah! Just an hour of hold music. And the hold music stops, and I'm like, hello? 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 And then I realized at that moment that I desperately missed the hold music. And I was like, please don't disconnect me. It's already been 49 minutes at this point. Then I sat there with another 11 minutes of not silence, like, you could hear some like clicking or staticky from time to time, like it was trying to play the music, but the music player had lost the will to live. It was, oh God, it was awful. It was awful. It was great. Please check your Twitter DM from I Fear Squids. Why do you fear squids? I don't see a Twitter DM from I Fear Squids. Did you send it to the right one? Some people get mixed up by one of the parody accounts. Because if you sent it to Ricada Law, but with Ricada misspelled, that's not me. That's a parody account. I'm Ricada Media. The source of all my frustrations in the world is the Ricada Law scam, or the Ricada Law parody account. It's great. Okay. You did send it to Ricada Media. I Fear Squids? Let's see. Aha! I found... Oh, it was from a couple days ago. Let's see. Let's see. Da, 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 da. I have no idea, buddy. I'll respond to you. I'll respond to you a little bit later. For now, because I think I need more info to know the context you're talking about. All right. So I have to start by roasting this idiot on Twitter. Okay. I have to get there. It's going to be... Whew. This guy needs a good roasting. So, let me bring this up. I am still, like, in the process of becoming alive, guys, and it's not working well. Okay. All right. Here we go. Don't worry about it, some beach. All right, look at this dummy. So here's Ron Toye replying to Mars Girl, who was replying to T. Greg. And I can't really show you those because of the blocking. But Toye says, isn't this amazing? I'll get to the source text in a minute, or I'll talk about it. I secretly hope somehow the news picks up the fact that idiot worked at the firm that was sanctioned for falsifying documents in the past and then caught doing it 3 times in our lawsuit. So what they're referring to here is that T. Greg mentioned that Douglas Hughes was tapped by the Trump team to to participate in some litigation that they have going on, specifically in Pennsylvania. After some lawyers withdrew, so they picked up a couple new lawyers out of Texas for a Pennsylvania suit. One of them being Douglas Hughes. So I took a look and didn't look very well, and so I write, "Wrong Hughes, idiot." Oh, watch out, because I have a surprise as to who the idiot was. The idiot, in a shocking twist, the idiot was me. So I had to post. Turns out I am the idiot this time. I verified it. I said, happy to correct it. It appears it is Senator Brian Hughes. So, here's part of where I went wrong. That Douglas Hughes is his given name, but he's Douglas Brian Hughes. He doesn't go by Douglas Hughes, and he's a state senator in Texas. He's a state senator in Texas. So when I looked through it, mea culpa, I thought they must be referring to someone else, because why wouldn't they mention that he's a sitting state senator and goes by Brian everywhere? So yeah. So there you go. It is Brian Hughes, although there's already a news update on that. So that's great. It is Brian Hughes. Let's go back to this other tweet. And absolutely, I'm a giant idiot for getting that wrong. But here's the thing. I'm certainly going to admit that I made a mistake. My apologies. Many, many apologies. For completely screwing that up. Which is obviously why Vic had to appeal his case, is because I got Brian Hughes' name wrong here. But let's briefly go talk about this real quick. Where was this? Right here. So, a quick chat. First of all, I'm pretty sure Brian Hughes had zero idea of the Vic case in general. I'm pretty sure of that because I actually got to meet Brian Hughes and have a chat with him for about, 25, 30 minutes. Very nice guy. Really personable. Pretty interesting guy in general. You can see why he's a state senator very quickly when you spend some time talking to him. State senators in Texas, by the way, their salary is massive. It's huge. $7,500 a year. Just a giant salary. Texas has actually figured out one thing better than any other state, and it's that you don't pay your congressman shit. So anyway, Brian Hughes didn't seem to know anything about the case. He's never been on a Vic document. And when I say I think he doesn't know anything, because I was kind of telling him about the case. This is months and months and months ago. $7,500, how they live. He lives by being a lawyer. But anyway, so I had to kind of tell him about the case, and it was pretty interesting. We had a nice chat about it, and then and that was that. So it was good. But he never ended up being on the case, and then he went to I think he went to some other firm or independent practice, or he's of counsel somewhere. I don't remember what exactly happened, but anyway, I think he's still in the same office. But it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter at all. He's no longer a partner at Beard and Harris. But I believe he's in the same office right next to them still. But I don't know. I can't verify that off the top of my head. I wouldn't want to be wrong about that too. Even though I think the address that he's registered under is still right there. But either way, he has nothing to do with anything. Real quick, the sanction that they got wasn't for falsifying documents. That's actually not quite correct. It's a pretty technical thing, and the sanction had to do with it wasn't a falsified document. It was, I think it was a letter sent to negotiation or whatever. I'm not gonna expound on it too much. Maybe someday we can get someone on to talk about specifically what happened. But it was pretty silly. Or maybe I'll just pull up the case and go through it sometime. It was not that big of a deal in general. And to make it out as if there was an actual falsified document is a bit much. But and there were certainly no falsified documents in the Vic lawsuit. That's ridiculous. What he's referring to there, I would assume, are the fraudulent notifications, which meant that notaries, which meant that Ty boomered the notary by doing it over the phone, which he talked about in at the hearing, and that is the source of much frustration. But it was certainly not falsified notaries. They were just wrong because you can't do it by phone. And they were, of course, replaced with unsworn declarations. And you guys know the rest. But anyway, I have to make fun of this idiot because I called Ron Toye an idiot. Although he is. I also made fun of T. Greg's neck fat, which I stand by. Because you have to stand, you're always standing by T. Greg's neck fat. But I stand by it very much. I stand by calling Ron an idiot. I stand by every negative thing I said about anybody in the thread. But I was wrong about Brian Hughes. So, so there. But you gotta lead with your mistakes, and you gotta be upfront about it. Okay, so this is great. I won't go into the thread about it because I don't like sitting and going through Twitter threads and giving attention to people who aren't really that interesting. But some guy was going back and forth with someone in the follow-up thread, and he I was like, he said the same script, right? That I've gotten everything wrong forever. And it's like, there are people who watched the show and who listened, and those people heard me say over and over and over that you've got a really difficult case. Defamation's difficult. The TCPA is a huge hurdle. It's a big thing to overcome. They've heard all this for months and months and months. And then when Vic didn't get past TCPA, it's like, haha, Nick was wrong. It's like, wait, but I said defamation is hard because of the TCPA. And I said it a bunch of times too. Multiple times. I did say that filing the TCPA was like lighting 10 grand on fire. I was wrong about that. It actually turned out to be more like lighting 50 grand on fire. As Ron has later disclosed, he spent $50,000 prior to his insurance coverage kicking in. So I guess I was wrong by a factor of 5, especially when, you know, all of these people probably could have gotten out of this for $0. So weird, but, you know, I guess. But yeah, but my point in all this is that I know for many of you who watched the case unfold, we were all hopeful, right? We were all hopeful. We wanted Vic to win. We see that Vic has legitimate claims, and then a Texas judge saw it differently. And there's all sorts of reasons for that, and it's a combination of a bunch of things. And if you've been following the case, you know that. But the people who haven't been following the show and the case on the show assume that I walked out and told everybody that Vic was going to win, guaranteed, and everybody, you know, would get their cut or something weird. None of which is true. So I briefly chimed in, right? And I'm like, look, supporting the guy who is arguing on my side in the thread, which I don't ever ask anyone to do. No, I don't think he was arguing like to defend me specifically. But if you ever think about arguing to defend me, don't bother. Don't waste your time. It's okay. If you want to like make fun of someone, by all means, go do it. What's up, RGE Raid? Welcome, guys. So the guy, I sent like just a little message of support about why these people won't understand us. And this guy starts coming after me, which is fine. And he says, see, Nick didn't admit his mistake. And I was like, wait, yeah, I did. And I had retweeted that I was the idiot. And I had done it like 6 hours before this guy said that I didn't, which is weird. So I point that out. And then he says, but you didn't. No, Vic's appeal was not denied. There hasn't been a ruling on Vic's appeal yet. That isn't a waiting for the thing. It could come I believe they published their opinions on Thursday. It could be any Thursday. So we're just waiting on the opinion to come out and see what happens. All right. The guy says that I didn't admit it, but I had admitted it, like I said, in a retweet 6 hours ago. And he's like, but you didn't admit it in the thread where people would see. And I was like, wait a minute. A retweet has more exposure than replying in the thread where no one will see it. Because you're not going back and looking at the old tweet. Twitter doesn't work that way for normal people. So I retweet it to get more exposure. As much exposure as possible to me being an idiot. And I had already planned on doing it on the show and making extra fun of myself in case people didn't know. But then, so I'm like, wait a minute. You're criticizing me for maximizing the exposure? And then, of course, I made fun of him because, his whole beef was that I didn't look into what I was wrong about, which was that Brian Hughes was representing Trump. Which, again, I didn't think was even in the realm of reasonable reality. But, again, and I was wrong, like I said. But, but I was like, you could have easily looked this up and you didn't. Instead, you just claimed it. But then when I told him, I'm like, no, I actually did. then he just instead of just going, oh, my bad, I didn't see it. He's like, criticizes me for not sending it directly to him hours prior or something. And I'm like, are you criticizing me for maximizing the exposure? And he's like, no, yes, you were. You just did. It was ridiculous. It was very strange. But that's what I got today. So fun times. Very fun times. Not fun. But, you know, mistakes happen. I will always own them. 100%. And that's how life goes. But the funny thing is, I don't think these people understand. They always of course he got snarky with me about how I'm able to do this show. Long story short. How I grift everybody into giving me money. And it's like, there's always this tinge of what I detect to be jealousy. I don't know if it is. It's how it comes across. Like, oh, you can convince people to give you money. It's like, well, here's the thing that I don't think you guys understand. Not you guys, these weirdos, right? It's like, if you have integrity and own your mistakes, people will forgive you for making a mistake. It's pretty simple because everybody's done it. Everybody makes a mistake. And so you get called a dummy and you move on. It's not a big deal. It's okay. It's okay. But you should always own it. Own your mistakes. Yeah, I made it. Sorry, my bad. That's integrity. And these guys don't do it, which is why people don't listen to them. Because why would you? Why would you ever listen to someone who doesn't ever just say, oh, you know what? You're right. Thanks. I've learned something. I've fixed it. It's cool. But I need a grifter statue. I have a statue. But I need a statue of Grifter. I need every issue of Grifter from Image Comics back in the day. I think Grifter got bought by DC and shuffled into some other property. But so that's my Twitter story for today. Make fun of me a lot for being dumb. I apologize, even though I said never apologize. I apologize to anyone who believed me. I did briefly look into it, but too briefly, I suppose. Also, I was dumbstruck that they didn't mention that the person that Trump picked, or the Trump campaign hired, was a sitting state senator, Republican state senator in Texas, who goes by Brian. Like that, because the other attorney that they mentioned, John Scott, the other attorney, they posted his bar number and everything. So I was shocked that they didn't do that for Brian Hughes. It was very, very weird. But yeah, worst mistake was leaving Nux alone with the chat. Okay. So that's that. That's what we've got for the Twitter stuff today. It was not a crazy segment, but I always lead with my my mistakes, and please throw pies at me so I can eat them and have EVS come lick it off of my face too. All right, let me do some super chats, and then I want to talk about Trump election lawsuit updates, including an update to Brian Hughes and his representation. So that's coming. That's coming. All right. So RZEQDW says, happy belated birthday to me. Meant to send this last Thursday. Hey, buddy. Happy belated birthday to you as well. I hope everything is going well down where you are. And I'm jealous of the sun and the warmth. It is snowy where I am. So, the Dragon's Treasure says, black tees matter. No justice, no tees. Screw bad baggies. Use coupon code NICK to get 10% off. Buy my tea or you hate the juice. Sorry, I'm new to this social justice thing. I don't get it. Yes, check out thedragonstreasure.com for your fusion of anime and hand cut or whatever loose leaf tea. Check it out. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. Yes, and use coupon code Nick at thedragonstreasure.com. Low Ghost says, can't stay up, but wanted to say you being an idiot is what makes this show awesome. Oh, thank you. That being said, I'd like to remind everyone to do their part and send super chats. Remember, quote, for every bill that goes unpaid, Nick gets a new arcade. Peace. Peace. Yes, thank you, Low Ghost, for that. That was funny. That was at 9:45 p.m. That was well in advance of the show. Mithrin Emrys. Felipe M. I do read regular chats when I see them. And, you know, it depends on the time we have. Mithrin Emrys says, with the advancements made in algorithms and the instantaneous censoring Google et al. Are now engaging in, they should no longer qualify for Section 230 immunity. The reasoning was that they were unable to moderate content. I agree. That's what I've been saying. Oh, that reminds me. I had a great conversation today with Soder. Soder is one of my good friends and my Discord admin. If you want Discord access, be grifted into Patreon or whatever. There are multiple ways you can check them out. I had a good chat with Soder today over some lunch, and I was reminded about something I said before this election stuff was even anywhere. Like, this is early in the year. It was maybe even last year. I want to bring it out. I would love to have a link to any of the times I said this, but I don't. If anybody has any of the clips or whatever, please feel free to send them to me and I'll show them. I don't know. I don't have an easy way to search for them. I posited a question a while back talking about 230, talking about these big tech companies in the censorship stuff. And I said, no one's going to stop them until they do something crazy. And I said, imagine if they blocked a politician in the middle of the election campaign. The amount of power that Twitter holds is huge. Just imagine what they could do if they cut off politicians and campaigns' abilities to communicate. What happened? What happened to Donald Trump in this election? They didn't cut him out, but they came damn close. They put a fact check on every single tweet that he made leading up to the election. They have called every tweet that he's made. They've cast doubt about its truth and credibility to a sitting president during an election cycle. They flat out censored his ability to communicate with people. And here's the crazy thing. I saw someone say because he lies. That's fine. He's allowed to lie. And so are you. And so am I. Everybody's like, there is no freedom from lying. Especially in a political campaign. No one's fact checking Joe Biden, which is crazy talk. If you're going to fact check a politician, you got to do it to all of them. All of them. But I want to point out that it's very, very possible that Twitter impacted this election enough to actually change the vote. And think about how scary that is. We're talking in many states, very small margins relative to the number of ballots cast. 10, 15,000 people. It is very possible, impossible to verify, but very possible that Twitter and the fact check sort of idea is what cost Donald Trump the election. And let me phrase it this way with political questions. Political questions, one man's lie is another man's truth on political questions. And this is what is so frustrating about politics, but it's also the reality of it. There are things that you can verify that are lies. And then there are other things which are misunderstandings, misinterpretations, and I don't mean on behalf of the speaker, or just perspective differences. And those differences of perspective can be enough for one person to call something a lie when another person would call it true. That's why we don't hold politicians as accountable. Because if you believe something should be a certain way, politically speaking, and you advocate for that, another person believes it shouldn't be, and so they will call it a lie. For example, how many people have died of COVID? Right? Some people say 260,000 or whatever the number is. Other people would say, well, there are underlying conditions in that number. And actually, the overwhelming majority of that number is an underlying condition. So some people would say it's much smaller. It's more like 20,000 people have died from COVID alone, for example. I don't know what the number is. I don't care. I think COVID is all sorts of problems. But just hear out my argument here. So which one's the lie? Is it 260,000? Is that one the lie? Is it 20,000? Is that one the lie? Is it somewhere in the middle? Can we even get to a number? Because like flu deaths are presumably down because people who would die from the flu have died from COVID or something. We've got our road deaths down. They'd almost have to be, right? There's less people driving. Statistically, it's got to be lower. So then do you tell less crime in many places except for Minneapolis, where the murder rate's up? We added that 50%, no big deal. But so which one is it? How do we actually find the number of people that COVID killed? It's a net sum game. It's possible, I don't think we're there, but it's possible that less people have died this year overall because more people died from COVID and then the lockdowns and stuff like that. That's a weird thing to think about. Suicides are up. Should those be attributed to COVID? Maybe. More like the lockdown, but still the lockdown and the fear mongering around it. But anyway, so politician comes out and says 260,000 people have died from COVID. Well, that's a lie, right? From one perspective, that's absolutely a lie. They had COVID when they died. That's a different thing. Maybe the COVID killed them, maybe it didn't. I don't know. Then you've got the other people says, well, 20,000 people have died from COVID. Well, that's kind of a lie too. That's a lie too, because, this other giant pool of people died with COVID that had to be a contributing factor to the death. And so then therefore we could say they died from COVID. But it depends on your political philosophy, your personal philosophy, your perspective on this, your education level to determine what the lie is. And you know who we can't credential when they're determining what's a lie? Twitter. Because who determined it was a lie at Twitter? What person on the team flagged it? Was it a machine learning lie? You've seen the meme, right, going around with like historical stuff and like a joking Twitter fact check about it. Like Galileo says that the earth revolves around the sun, revolves around the sun or whatever. And it's like, theologists disagree with this tweet. This tweet is disputed. Or the redcoats are coming. Like, please Check here. Click here to find out the good things about British taxation. My point in all of this, and I'm rounding all this out, no idea how much Twitter has affected this election, but it's terrifying to think the amount of power that they maybe have wielded. Doesn't a lie have intent as a factor? It does. It does, and that's the scary thing, right? Because, I mean, one's a lie and one's wrong. One's a lie and one's wrong. That's why they call it a fact check. To give credit to the media, they call it a fact check, although many of them say it's a huge lie. But some of them who just rate it true, false, they don't always assign intent, and that is to their credit. But the problem is, what's your source on the fact check? What's their ideology? What's the perspective of the fact checker? Are they reading personal bias into either the fact or the check? The answer is yes to all those things. With Twitter, we can't evaluate who it is. We have no idea. We have no idea. Very scary stuff. Anyway, I was just thinking about that today, and I was like, my mind was blown that, because I think, let me lead with a mistake on, or follow with a mistake on this one, as I'm remembering. I'm pretty sure I said there's no way Twitter would be crazy or stupid enough to block someone like Trump in the election cycle. I'm pretty sure I got that one very wrong. So fact check that if you want. I'm pretty sure that that's what I said, because I was such a naive summer child watching world events. I mean, there's no way they're going to do that. That's the quickest way to get your asses kicked, is to go after a sitting president in that way in his reelection. And then they did, and damn. So. Okay, let's go back to these super chats. But yes, thank you, Mithrin. I agree. Twitter and Google, they should not be under the existing 230. 230 should be retooled with this stuff in question. Arctic Pride says, watched a portion of your recent cooking stream recorded. Here's a donation to help you replace those dull AF knives you're using to mutilate those poor vegetables with. Thank you. Thank you. My knife does need a legit sharpening, not a honing steel sharpening, but a real one. So, okay. There's a bunch of weird updates going on with the Trump election stuff, and let's talk about some of them. This one was a weird one. Tom Fitton. Look at this guy. Who is this guy? President of Judicial Watch? Oh, I was thinking of Jihad Watch. Jihad Watch is one that got yeeted off of Patreon. This guy's president of Judicial Watch, okay? I get letters from them and I throw them away. It says, breaking. Real Donald Trump attorney files motion to show cause with federal courts over harassing call from Kirkland and Ellis firm that represents Pennsylvania Secretary of State Bookvar. All right, I believe... Let me see. I believe I actually have this pulled up. Yep. Here we go. It's fitting to happen. All right, we'll read this because it's only like a couple pages. Who's this filed by? Linda Kerns. Linda Kerns. And we'll talk about Linda Kerns more today in just a minute. Get Tom on the show? How do I get Tom on the show? I have no connection with that guy. Oh, yes, the AP is called the presidential race for Joe Biden. Thank you, Associated Press. Thank you, YouTube, for reminding everybody. Okay, so this is the motion to show cause. So since this case was filed, undersigned counsel has been subjected to continuous harassment in the form of abusive emails, phone calls, physical and economic threats, and even accusations of treason, all for representing the President of the United States campaign in this litigation. And you know what's great? This is something no one talks about. I mean, that's not true. Some people talk about it. We'll talk about it now. This is something people don't talk about enough. Attorneys represent people all the time for all sorts of reasons, right? That's we're supposed to be like lawful neutral or something, or chaotic neutral. I don't know. Not true neutral, because that's weird. But we're supposed to be relatively neutral entities who are mercenaries for hire. That's the point of an attorney. Like if a husband or wife approaches you wanting a divorce, as an attorney, you typically just represent whoever shows up first and can pay you. So you don't really care what side it is. It's not actually your job to care. This is the weird thing. It's not an attorney's job to care what side you're on. And in fact, like, there are ethical considerations that say you shouldn't reject someone because you disagree with their side or their issue. It's why you'll see conservative lawyers representing trans people or whatever. You'll see liberal lawyers representing conservative Christians on speech issues and stuff like that. Okay? Because they're supposed to be mercenaries. But that means that our representation isn't indicative of our position on a subject. And so, when you represent someone, and this is a new trend, especially with social media, and it's really been going on a lot in this election, people are directing hate at these lawyers all over. And I saw it. You see it everywhere. You see this post. Okay, this post is common. It's a person's picture, their phone number or email or place they work, or all of them, and it says, "Here they are, Twitter. X person involved in X issue. Do your thing. Do your thing." It's a literal call to harassment on people for whatever issue. Now, sometimes it's someone who was caught on a viral video punching someone or whatever, like the guy who punched Rick Moranis. The "do your thing" Twitter, whatever. I'm not a huge fan of the "do your thing" tweet, but people do this, okay? And so they've been doing your thing to all of the lawyers representing Trump, representing the Trump campaign. They are called to harass tons of people. Lincoln Project did it specifically, and it is causing tons of abuse to come in, death threats. Like, it's one thing to do your thing on a small scale. Like Dominique Sky did this the other day to some guy. I don't know what the issue was. I don't remember. I saw her do your thing post. Maybe it was even justified. I don't know. I'm not making a comment on the content of it. But she has like 30 people who desperately want to see her bad nudes or whatever. And so they follow, and not a lot happens from that. But on an issue like the presidential election and the lawyers representing him, you're talking about tens to hundreds of thousands of people who are seeing these things and then taking action. The amount of abuse coming in is quite a bit. Potentially, a big asterisk on that. All right? Because my policy on this is consistent, and I will say it when I'm done reading the complaint. Okay? So, but I want to point that out, like the harassment. Oh, The reason I want to point it out is because people like on law Twitter and lawyers on Twitter are doing this too. And that's the real embarrassing shit from the profession. You saw who did one of them. We talked about it earlier. Actually, you didn't see the tweet, but that's what T. Greg was doing to Brian Hughes, by the way. T. Greg was trying to associate Brian Hughes with Ty Beard's representation of Vic Mignogna. That's what the tweet was geared to do, and to call people to action in some way, to mocking Brian Hughes for something that he had nothing to do with. That was the point. That's what people like that do. And the lawyers involved in it should be embarrassed, and they should probably eat a bunch of rocks or something and have digestive issues. Okay, here we go. It is one thing for members of the public to break the laws of decorum or even laws of Pennsylvania or the United States by engaging in such harassment. Depends on the harassment. This court's role is not to protect counsel from such attacks, but it is another thing for a lawyer in the Washington, D.C. office of Kirkland and Ellis, Secretary Bookvar's outside counsel, to do so. And yet, that is what happened. It is quintessentially the court's role to police and appropriately sanction law firms appearing in front of it for such conduct. It is plaintiff's obligation to defend its counsel, and it does so now by respectfully moving for an order for Kirkland and Ellis to show cause justifying the conduct of its lawyers. On November 14th, 2020 at 8:43 a.m., an attorney at Kirkland and Ellis left a 1-minute voicemail for undersigned counsel. That voicemail, which has been provided to counsel of record from Kirkland and Ellis in this case, and will be provided to the court via email upon request, speaks for itself and by any measure falls afoul of standards of professional conduct. Local Rule 8323-2 adopts a code of professional conduct for practitioners in this district, which includes a commitment to, quote, treat with civility and respect the lawyers, clients, opposing parties, the court, and all officials with whom I work. That's the Lawyers Rules 8323-2, and adopts the Pennsylvania Rules of Professional Conduct, the preamble to which states that a lawyer should demonstrate respect for the legal system and for those who serve it, including judges, other lawyers, and public officials. You, I hope, already see the problem with this motion, okay? But if there needs to be a rule saying that Kirkland and Ellis associates should not call opposing counsel and leave an abusive voicemail, then all hope is lost. Contacted about this message, Secretary Bookvar's counsel first opined that despite the caller identification on the voicemail, the call may not have been placed from Kirkland and Ellis. Confronted with the fact that the firm issues cell phones to its lawyers, it should be easy to check a directory to confirm that this number belongs to one of his colleagues. Opposing counsel finally admitted that it did, but then excused the conduct by saying the lawyer, who works in the same office, does not work on this case or in litigation. This is a pretty important distinction, though. And offering that the call was discourteous and apologized for wasting time. That is not good enough under rules of this court or the Pennsylvania Rules of Professional Conduct, and this court's authority to issue sanctions exists in order to protect litigants, counsel, and the rules themselves. It is sad that we currently reside in a world where abuse and harassment are the cost of taking on a representation unpopular with some. It is sanctionable when that abuse and harassment comes from an elite law firm representing the Secretary of State. An appropriate sanction should issue, one which deters such misconduct in the future. Citing GN Netcom Incorporated versus Plantronics. Rule 37 sanctions should be tailored to deter similar misconduct in the future. Plaintiffs defer to the court as to what sanction is appropriate and respectfully ask for an order to show cause for the above described conduct of Secretary Bookvar's counsel. Respectfully submitted, Linda A. Kerns. But it's not Secretary Bookvar's counsel. It's not Secretary Bookvar's counsel. It's a lawyer working at the same law firm, even in the same office, isn't the counsel if they're not the counsel. So, what are they bound to? Like, what rule do they have to follow? So, This is the tweet. But here's my tweet. Because I'm consistent on this. Post the voicemail. Post the voicemail. Was it harassing? I don't know. I'm taking their word for it. Post the fucking voicemail. What did they say? You're terrible. You suck. So? Did they say, you need to die? I'm going to kill you? Different story. Different story. But post the voicemail. Exactly. Conspiracy. Post the voicemail or GTFO. GTFO, you're a lawyer. Get over it. The same thing about, well, at least in the Chris Hook stuff, they posted the emails. They sent him to the court. They didn't even quote it. They didn't even quote it in there. They're asking the court for sanctions against another law firm because one of their attorneys who's not on the case sent a voicemail they don't like, and they don't even, not even a quote, not even a single quote from the voicemail. Like, I don't know, eat cyanide, bitch, or something, maybe. Show us what was so offensive from the voicemail. Otherwise, like, if I'm a judge, I'm like, well, what did they say? That's all I want to know. What did they say? Why are you so mad about this? I hate this stuff. And then I'm sure we've got a bunch of Republicans supporting rampant Karenism because it's the Republican lawyer. But they actually, there's nothing preventing them from posting the voicemail. Nothing at all. There's no protected communication here. They've said in their motion that this person was not counsel of record. So whatever their voicemail says, I mean, that's like, you know, me calling up anybody else and leaving a voicemail. They could post it. Absolutely. You know what they said? They said pineapple pizza is terrible. So yeah, this is a mild news update in the Trump case. Trump cases that came out today. Donald Trump attorney files motion to show cause. Blah blah blah. Not a huge thing, but it's there. I want them to post the voicemail. Maybe it's funny. The release of the voicemail was uncouth. Look, if you send a voicemail that is at all considered harassing to an attorney that you're not actually opposed to, like you just sent a harassing voicemail or even a mildly annoying voicemail and then they release it, there is no complaint. There's no complaint there. They're asking for sanctions. Sanctions is money, usually. But let's get to the next part about Linda Kerns, shall we? This makes me wonder if this had anything to do with it. So this was filed November 15th, yesterday. This new one was filed November 16th, today. Motion for withdrawal of appearance. Pursuant to Local Rule 83.15, Linda Kerns, John Scott, and Douglas Brian Hughes, hey, we were just talking about two of these people, hereby move to withdraw their appearance as counsel for the plaintiffs. Marc A. Scaringi will act as counsel for plaintiffs. Plaintiffs consent to this withdrawal. A proposed order is attached. Respectfully submitted, Linda Kerns, John Scott, and Douglas Brian Hughes. So here we go. Memorandum in support of motion for withdrawal of appearance. Plaintiffs Linda Kerns, John Scott, and Douglas Bryan Hughes have reached a mutual agreement that plaintiffs will be best served if they withdraw. And Marc A. Scaringi represent the plaintiffs in this case. There's a hearing on this tomorrow or today, depending on where you are, November 17th. There's a hearing in this case, and Marc Scaringi will be taking over and running the hearing. I mean, it's not like, oh, they withdrew at the last minute. It's like, well, I mean, but John Scott and Bryan Hughes had just joined like the day before. So it's not like they're, whoa, we lost out on a ton of work. Linda A., John Scott, and Douglas Hughes will abide fully by their obligations under Pennsylvania Rule of Professional Conduct and otherwise take such steps as are necessary to avoid prejudice to plaintiffs in this matter or to delay the court's consideration of the case. They asked they be granted leave to withdraw. There you go. And it's been served. And they have a proposed order here allowing them to step out. So all of that Bryan Hughes stuff was for naught because he's already back out of the case. Linda Kerns, this motion to show cause. Is this the same case? Yeah. Same case here. She's out of the case as well. Now, I don't know if it had anything to do with the abuse and harassment that they got. We don't have any idea what, no idea what actually caused their withdrawal or their wanting to withdraw. Maybe they just didn't. Here's the thing. We'll talk about this a little bit more. There's a disconnect in the Trump legal strategy. Maybe you guys have seen it. We've been talking about it here on the show, much to the dismay of many of you, I'm sure, for the past week. 2 weeks now. We're going into the second week of talking about this. And it's the disconnect is that the Trump media front of this fight is very, very bombastic and sensational. The Trump legal front of this fight is very underwhelming. And we're going to talk about the Pennsylvania lawsuit that got pared back heavily today. And we'll talk about Lynn Wood's lawsuit down in Georgia. But we've got a big disconnect. Big disconnect. There's also another lawsuit, I believe that was... Nope, I'm misstating that. Sorry. There was a lawsuit filed in Michigan, but that was on the 11th. We got to check in on the status of it. But there's all this talk coming from people like Giuliani, coming from Trump himself about these election updates being corrupt and stuff like that. And I want to believe it. I want to jump in. But I'm not seeing it manifest. And this is a disconnect between the legal strategy that has been being pushed forward and people like Giuliani, who is, a big part of Trump's legal machine, but he's not a big part of the campaign's legal machine. And I was reading an article the other day about this sort of disparity between the two. Maybe the representation withdrawal from of a lot of lawyers from the Trump legal teams are due to disagreements about strategy. And that disagreement can come from either side, right? It can come from the Trump campaign saying, we need aggression on these issues. And the lawyers saying, that's not the case that we think is going to go. And by the way, if a lawyer says, that's not the way I would go about this, that's not always a criticism of your approach. Just say, maybe I'm not the guy to do that. If you want that, go get that guy, because I can't bring that strategy, or I don't see a good way to make that strategy happen. So then you go get Lynn Wood or whatever who does. And that's a fine thing. That's a fine thing. So anyway, this is the potential reason. I don't know why lawyers are withdrawing. It could be because of abuse. It could be because they have a disparate legal strategy than what the Trump campaign wants. Marc Scaringi, for example, this guy here that is taking over. Let's take a peek at Marc Scaringi. I think he's somewhat of a somebody. We can find him here on Twitter. Whoa. Here he is. Marc A. Scaringi, lawyer at Scaringi Law, columnist and host of the Marc Scaringi Show at WHP 580 and iHeartRadio and News Talk WEJS Saturdays, 1 p.m. So here you go. He's a radio host and a columnist. So it's he's got a tweet: Biden's people ready for a coup if he loses. I don't know anything about Marc Scaringi. Okay, his Twitter presence is pretty minimal. I've never heard of him before today. So I don't know anything about this guy. But it's possible. It's possible that they're tapping Marc Scaringi to be a more... He's a radio host, right? Presumably a conservative radio host. The couple tweets that he's got, like Biden preparing for a coup, is a pretty sensationalist sort of statement. Maybe this is an indication that they're trying to shift towards a more aggressive footing that aligns with their media presence. I don't know. It's hard to say. So we'll have to see. A jawline that could cut diamonds. It's hard to see without some specific statements. It's hard to see what exactly the idea is, but I'm guessing that it might have to do with a shift in strategy. We've been waiting to see that shift in strategy manifest. Hiring Lynn Wood to take on the case in Georgia that we're going to look at in just a minute is a big step, I believe, in that direction. Because Lynn Wood obviously is not, he's for whatever Lynn Wood is, he's not a softballer, so to speak. But I don't want to hype it because I'm tired of them hyping it without backing it up. All right, let's take a look though at some other stuff that's been going on. And in this election fiasco. And it is a fiasco. It really is. Oh, also, I guess I'm probably going to start posting on Parler a little bit more. I hate having multiple platforms. I really do. This one. This one. Let's talk about Trump's tweet here. Talk about Trump's tweet here. So Trump is retweeting this. Adam Paul L'exalt says the Clark County Commission just threw out an election that represents almost 1/6 of the total votes cast in Clark County because there were too many discrepancies to be sure that the result in the election can be certain. 153,000 votes in this election. Sounds like big news. Trump says, big victory moments ago in the state of Nevada. The all-Democrat county commissioner race on the same ballot as president just thrown out because of large-scale voter discrepancy. Clark County officials do not have confidence in their own election security. Major impact. But that's not... I mean, like, I don't want to do this, but that's not the story. That's not the story here. They didn't throw out a single vote for president. All 153,000 votes from this election in Clark County for president are still in. Are still in. No fact check. It's real. It's not. It's not. It's not. I mean, it is, but it's not. God damn it. Let's read the underlying story here, okay? A lot to read. Let's get down to the meat of this. Gloria says he has found discrepancies in the Clark County Commissioner C race that he can't reconcile. There are a total of 139 discrepancies in that race that he acknowledges could affect the outcome of the election. Because the margin was 10 votes. It was 10 votes. So the county commissioner race was 10 votes apart, and they have 139 discrepancies. That's a problem. We found discrepancies that we can't explain that would cast a doubt on whether or not that margin of victory is solid. Clark County Registrar Joe Gloria notes that the only race they have an issue with is the Commission District C race because of the 10-vote margin. It's the only race in the entire election we have any concern related to the outcome is because of the margin. Clark County Commissioner Tix Sagerblom is pressing the point that if there is a recount, the same discrepancies would still be present. A recount does not address those discrepancies. They're now discussing the fact that Clark County could set up a special election for just one particular race. Okay? Here's the problem. This guy is saying they threw out an election that represents almost 1/6 of the total votes in Clark County because there were too many discrepancies. That's kind of what happened, but not really. But the too many discrepancies is relative to the tiny vote margin, because there are less discrepancies in this race than there are in other places, like Georgia, for example, where a whole county had 2,500 missing votes just tallied up. That's a much bigger discrepancy. So then going back, of course, to Trump's thing, big victory, like this isn't a big victory. This has nothing to do with the Trump election and involves, as he said, an all-Democrat county commissioner race. So it's large-scale voter discrepancy. It's actually very small-scale voter discrepancy. It's specifically not correct. And I get it. There's a hype going on. There's a big thing. 200,000 likes. Like, put up, please. Please put up. I want them to put up the evidence. I want them to go after Dominion Software. I want them to do it. But instead, we're getting this. All right. I hate to be this guy. Now, let's check out Lynn Wood. This is actually Lynn Wood's talking a big game here, and finally putting up a suit about it. Let's I'm not gonna watch the video. I think he's posted. Here we go. Verified amended complaint. We're gonna take a look at this one. Because I read through the suit earlier. I didn't read all of it because it's 59 pages. Skimmed some of the important sections, and I think this suit is good. It's a good start. I mean, we'll see what happens with it, and if they stick with it and all of that. But this is along the sort of line that we need to start seeing if they're going to challenge this election in any real way. They have to start filing suits that look like this and then backing those suits up. Scyther Mantis, why is the vote margin the only thing that matters? Are you talking about in the Nevada thing? Because they had 139 discrepancies and 10 votes between the two. So that number of discrepancies could decide the county commissioner election either way. That's why it matters there. But let's say there are 139 discrepancies that they found on the ballots. That's not flipping, like, if there were discrepancies between Trump and Biden on those ballots, that's not flipping Nevada. Not even close. That's not even a tenth of the way to it. Read the affidavits. I read the affidavits. It's not enough. They're not going after enough votes. Did you read the fucking affidavits? Because I read the fucking affidavits. There's not enough votes in the case you're talking about. That's what I'm trying to tell you. You're eating up the hype. And they're not actually bringing it. God damn it. But I'm telling you, this one is different by Lynn Wood. This is more of the posture they need to take. I'm trying to highlight a positive here. I agree we shouldn't have 139 unresolvable discrepancies. I do. We could look into what the discrepancies are, but that's not going to change the outcome in Nevada. It's not even close. Here we go. Oh, wait, let's read Linwood's tweet. I like this. Late this afternoon, I filed an amended complaint against Georgia Secretary of State. Due process issues are now also raised. The recount is a sham. Tomorrow, I will move for an emergency temporary restraining order. Brian Kemp of Georgia better come out of his basement. Brian Kemp is a Republican in Georgia. Republican governor. And I believe the Georgia Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, Raffensperger is also a Republican. So they are going after Republicans in Georgia. So they're going after the Republicans in Georgia. You can expect, by the way, depending on how this turns out, Brian Kemp and the Georgia Secretary of State to be primaried. You can expect that. But this is funny. This is funny. He better come out of his basement. Let's see. Here we go. The affidavit, Sidney Powell with Lou Dobbs. Is that a different one? A different Sidney Powell on Lou Dobbs? All right, let's take a look at this complaint. Oh, some of the context of this, by the way, is one thing I haven't talked about yet, but we may get to if we have time. Probably not. The Trump campaign has severely, or the Trump legal team in Michigan has pared back their lawsuit. And they've, wait, Michigan or Pennsylvania? I'm trying to remember. I'll have to find it. In case you didn't know, they amended their complaint and took out basically everything about, this would have been Michigan, I think. They took out basically all of the stuff about being prevented from going in to the polling places. Remember the big hype about the not being allowed in as observers to the election? It's Pennsylvania? Yeah, so they scaled that back. That's fake news? Okay. So, we'll take a look at it. We'll take a look at it. Look at Rudy's tweet about it. We should be able to find the amended complaint. Should be good. We'll take a look at it. Here we go. So here's the complaint in Georgia. Citizens of the state of Georgia deserve fair elections untainted by... And by the way, I like Tim Pool, but if you're gonna, like, don't tell me it's fake because Tim Pool said so. I've seen Tim Pool's legal analysis, and he's not a lawyer, and he sometimes gets things wrong on it. So I like him just fine. He's great. He's a great journalist. Very, very good. And he may have this one right. But I'm not going to take, like, well, Tim Pool said so at value. I'm going to look at the document. So we'll see. The citizens of the state of Georgia deserve fair elections, untainted by violations of the U.S. Constitution. The validity, we're going to read the intro, and then we'll skip to some of the facts. Validity of the results in the November election in Georgia are at stake as a result of defendants' unauthorized actions in the handling of absentee ballots within the state. Actions that were contrary to the Georgia election code. And this is a big part of what's going on in several states that they need to focus on more, in my opinion. And I'm glad to see this in Linwood's suit. They're going to make a due process and equal protection claim. That claim is not the strongest claim in the world. There's doubts about whether or not equal protection is a thing in the difference between an absentee ballot and an in-person ballot. But just because there's doubts about it doesn't mean it shouldn't be raised. I just want to point out it's not a surefire form of attack. There's some opinions in the past that cast doubt on the ability to do this. However, we don't have circumstances in the past that we have like now. So whenever you're dealing with precedent, every minor thing removed, every minor factual difference removed from the decision is a much bigger step in terms of law than it is in terms of related factual analysis. I hope that makes some sort of sense. Let's see. I hope that makes some sort of sense because it gets the idea that precedential opinions are limited to very narrow questions of fact and law, generally speaking. Now, there are some pretty sweeping ones, like Roe versus Wade is a pretty sweeping decision, for example. It's why it's such a big issue. But other ones are fairly narrow. And so saying that an absentee ballot and an in-person ballot being treated slightly different in a case historically is a big step away from now when we had so many more absentee ballots and mail-in ballots than we've ever had before. And different procedures going into it and different questions about it. And we're going to get to those in this lawsuit. So defendants unilaterally and without the approval of direction of the Georgia General Assembly changed the process for handling absentee ballots in Georgia, including those cast in the general election. They also did the same thing up in Pennsylvania, and they saw some success, I believe, in that lawsuit. As a result, the inclusion and tabulation of absentee ballots for the general election is improper and must not be permitted. This is a big ask. To allow otherwise would erode the sacred and basic rights of Georgia citizens under the United States Constitution to participate in and rely upon a free and fair election. Oh. So they're going to ask in this suit for a very dramatic remedy, and that is to throw out all absentee ballots in Georgia. That is a huge, huge ask. But let's see the argument that they make. So we're not going to read the parties. Wait, what was this? This is jurisdiction, parties. Facts. Free and fair and transparent elections are crucial to democracy. Elections Clause of the United States. We've talked about this. U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 4, Clause 1. Legislature is the representative body which makes the laws of the people. Georgia legislature is the General Assembly. United States Constitution reserves for state legislatures the power to set the time, place, and manner of holding elections for Congress and the president, sort of on time. This is a more complicated question, but state executive officers, including but not limited to Secretary Raffensperger, have no authority to unilaterally exercise that power, much less flout existing legislation. This is right. This is what I've been talking about in the question that they need to answer. In fact, I think the first video in which I talked about which legal avenues they need to prepare, they need to follow, this is a big one. Can first the Secretary of State or the courts, second, and then third, the state legislatures extend the time to receive ballots, for example, past the time set by the federal Congress for the election date. Can they do that? That is a big question. Can they do it? If they can do it, we're in trouble. If the Supreme Court or any court eventually resolves a question in the favor of no, the Secretary of State or the court or even the legislature can extend the voting date beyond the date that Congress picks, if they choose that, Trump loses. There's no bones about it. They say, oh yeah, of course they can take votes after that. Because that's what happened. Votes came in late, right? That's been the big thing. 4 a.m. vote drop, 150,000 votes, swinging states. We saw it happen live. If you were watching the election, we saw it happen. The election coverage here, you saw it happen in Wisconsin live. They got a huge boost for Biden, no boost for Trump with a late night drop after the counting had stopped. Should that be allowed? I say no. By the way, for all my doom pilling, I don't think that should be allowed at all. I think all votes should be counted on election day, period. Not at 4 a.m. I don't think 4 a.m. vote drops in Detroit should be allowed either. Not at all. They need to be thrown out, in my opinion. And they need to go after those votes. But not just like this many ballots in dispute. I think they need to go after the idea of any ballot after midnight local time being received by the counting office. Shouldn't happen. All of the votes should be in on that day. It's in Constitution and the United States Code. So, nor can the authority to ignore... Spurious, I can't say after 8 p.m. because that's not what it says in the law. Article 3 U.S. Code Section 1 says that the appointing of electors shall be done on the next Tuesday following the first Monday of November. To me, that's the entirety of Tuesday. So I don't want to hear... Like, I don't think 8 p.m. is the answer. I think they should be counted by midnight. Whenever you have to receive them to finish the count by midnight, which means, I mean, if you have to vote a week early, then that's what you have to do. Smack64, I hear you. I said, we'll look at the document. We'll look at the document. Andrew War Snowboard says, how to get a TV subscription on my cell data plan. Charter sucks and I wish I could watch TV when my internet is down. What would I do without my phone to even watch this stream on? I don't know. You can get YouTube TV, I guess. Nor can the authority to ignore existing legislation be delegated to an executive officer. While the Elections Clause was not adopted to diminish a state's authority to determine its own lawmaking process, it does hold states accountable to their chosen processes when it comes to regulating federal elections. Significant departure from the legislative scheme for appointing presidential electors presents a federal constitutional question, and that's citing Bush versus Gore. Georgia legislature's laws governing the handling of absentee ballots. So the Georgia General Assembly provided a generous absentee ballot statute, which provides in pertinent part an elector who votes by absentee ballot shall not be required to provide a reason in order to cast a ballot in any primary election or runoff. Georgia legislature also established a clear and efficient process for handling absentee ballots to the extent that any change in that process could be expected to change the process. That change must, under Article 1, Section 4 of the U.S. Constitution, be prescribed by the Georgia legislature. Under the Georgia Code, Georgia legislature instructed the county registrars and the clerks to handle the absentee ballots as directed therein. The Georgia legislature set forth the procedures to be used by each municipality for appointing the absentee ballot clerks to ensure that such clerks would perform the duties set forth in this article. The election code instructs those who handle absentee ballots to follow a clear procedure. Okay, here's the procedure. Upon receipt of each ballot, a registrar or clerk shall write the day and hour of the receipt of the ballot on its envelope. The registrar or clerk shall then compare the identifying information on the oath with the information on file in his or her office, shall compare the signature or mark on the oath with the signature or mark on the absentee elector's voter card, or the most recent update to such absentee elector's voter registration card, an application for absentee ballot, or a facsimile of said signature or marker taken from said card or application, and shall, if the information and signature appear to be valid and other identifying information appears to be correct, so certify by signing or initialing his or her name below the voter's oath. Each elector's name so certified shall be listed by the registrar or clerk on the numbered list of absentee voters prepared for his or her precinct. Okay, that's a lot of shalls. Shalls are commanding language. Commanding language in a law. If it says shall, that means must. Must do. You shall do this thing. Not may, not might, not maybe, shall. Casey Sims, we're talking about a different suit here. The Georgia legislature's use of the word shall on 3 different occasions. There's 4. Right? There's one right here too, Lynn. There's 5. You highlighted 4 of them. I'm kidding. I'm just being nitpicky. Indicates a clear process that must be followed by the officials. Georgia legislature also established a clear and efficient process to be used by county officials if they determine that an elector has failed to sign the oath on the outside envelope. They provided the steps to be followed by the county officials with respect to defective absentee ballots. If the elector has failed to sign the oath, or if the signature does not appear to be valid, or if the elector has failed to furnish required information, or information so furnished does not conform with that on file in the registrar's or clerk's office, or if the elector is otherwise found disqualified to vote, the registrar or clerk shall write across the face of the envelope, rejected, given the reason therefor. The Board of Registrars or absentee ballot clerk shall promptly notify the elector of such rejection, copy of which notification shall be retained in the files of the Board of Registrars or absentee ballot clerk for at least 1 year. They again use the word shall to be rejected. All right, so the legislature figured all this out, wrote it down, made the law. Defendants' unauthorized actions to alter the Georgia election code and the processing of defective ballots. Notwithstanding the clarity of the applicable statutes and the constitutional authority for the Georgia legislature's actions, on March 6, 2020, the Secretary of State, Secretary Raffensperger, and the State Election Board, who administer the state elections, entered into a compromise and settlement agreement and release with the Democratic Party of Georgia Incorporated. The Democrat Senatorial Campaign Committee and the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee setting forth, so they settled a lawsuit setting forth different standards to be followed by the clerks and registrars in processing absentee ballots in the state of Georgia. True and correct copy of the litigation settlement is attached hereto and incorporated herein as Exhibit A. Is it actually here? We're on page 11. Do they actually have... Here's the compromise settlement and release. Okay, they do have it. Gosh. The litigation settlement sets forth different standards to be followed by the clerks and registrars in processing of the absentee ballots than those described above. Although Raffensperger, as the Secretary of State, is authorized to promulgate rules and regulations that are conducive to the fair, legal, and orderly conduct of primaries and elections, all such rules and regulations must be consistent with the law. Under the settlement, however, the administrators agreed to change the statutorily prescribed manner of handling absentee ballots in a manner that was not consistent with the laws promulgated by the Georgia legislature for elections of this state. The litigation settlement provides that the Secretary of State would issue an official election bulletin to county administrators, overriding the statutory procedures prescribed for those officials. That power, however, does not belong to the Secretary of State under the U.S. Constitution. Litigation settlement procedure is more cumbersome and makes it more difficult to follow the statute with respect to defective absentee ballots. Now, they're arguing and I think the argument is good, that whatchamacallit, that not only did they change the procedure, they made the procedure impossible. It's impossible to actually verify a signature now, and then the argument is that they didn't reject them because it's impossible to verify the rejection. So because of the COVID-19 pandemic and the pressures created by a larger number of absentee ballots, county officials were under great pressure to handle at a historical level of absentee voting. Additionally, the county officials were required to certify the speed with which they were handling absentee ballots on a daily basis, with the goal of processing the ballots faster than they've been processed in the past. Under the settlement, the following language added to the pressures and complexity of processing the ballots, making it less likely they would be identified or, if identified, processed for rejection. So here we've got the original stuff, and then they added the new stuff here. If the registrar or absentee ballot clerk determines that the voter's signature on the mail-in absentee ballot envelope does not match any of the voter's signatures on file in eNet or on the absentee ballot application, the registrar or absentee ballot clerk must seek review from two other registrars, deputy registrars, or absentee ballot clerks. A mail-in absentee ballot shall not be rejected unless a majority of the registrars, deputy registrars, or absentee ballot clerks reviewing the signature agree that the signature does not match any of the voter's signatures on file in eNet or on the absentee ballot application. If a determination is made that the elector's signature on the mail-in absentee ballot envelopes does not match any of the voter's signature on file in eNet or on the absentee ballot application, the registrar or absentee ballot clerk shall write the names of the three election officials who conducted the signature review across the face of the absentee ballot envelope, which shall be in addition to the writing rejected, and the reasons for the rejection as required. The underlying language is not consistent with the statute adopted by the Georgia legislature. Of course not. Instead of having a single person review the a person entrusted with the process of reviewing the signature, they now have three people. They have to go get a minimum of two other people to review it and then vote by majority. First, litigation settlement overrides the clear statutory authorities granted to Georgia county officials individually, forces them to form a committee of three if any one official believes the absentee ballot is a defective ballot. Such procedure is a cumbersome bureaucratic procedure to be followed with each defective absentee ballot and makes it likely that such ballots will simply not be identified by the county officials. Now, the question is, I don't think they gave numbers on how many of these things they think it happened to, and that might be a problem for them. Second, the settlement allows a county official to compare signatures in ways not permitted by the statutory structure. The Georgia legislature prescribed procedures to ensure that any request for an absentee ballot must be accompanied by sufficient identification of the elector's identity. The electors must present identification but need not submit it with their application if the county officials are able to match their information in the database. System for identifying absentee ballots was carefully constructed by the Georgia legislature. They mandated the system whereby the elector be identified for each absentee ballot. Under the settlement, any determination of a signature mismatch would lead to the cumbersome process described, which was not intended by the Georgia legislature, which authorized those decisions to be made by single election officials. Nick, it's a demon rat confirmed. I'm a ratling, I guess. The Georgia legislature also provided for the opportunity to cure, again, different from the opportunity to cure in the litigation settlement, but did not allocate funds for 3 county officials for every mismatch decision. In the primary proceeding, news stories recorded that many absentee ballots did not reach voters after the polls were closed. So that was in the primary. Very interesting. In response to and to encourage confidence in absentee voting during the COVID crisis, Secretary of State launched ballot tracks to track absentee ballots, permitting electors to track the progress of absentee ballots as they were processed. Announcing ballot tracks further increased pressure on county officials to process the ballots quickly so they would not be perceived as falling behind. County officials were not incentivized to spend additional time to check absentee ballot applications by increasing the number of reviewers and complexity of the process. The litigation settlement procedures created further disincentives to accurate processing of signature matches. Finally, under paragraph 4, the administrators delegated their responsibilities for determining when there was a signature mismatch by considering in good faith additional guidance and training materials drafted by the handwriting and signature review expert of the Democrat Party agencies. Allowing a single political party to write rules for reviewing signatures is not conducive to the fair conduct of primaries and elections or consistent with law. Litigation settlement by itself has created confusion, misplaced incentives, and undermined the confidence of the voters in the state of Georgia in the electoral system. Okay, so that's the issue with absentee ballots. But now he's going to address the hand recount. Now we're going to address the hand recount. On November 3rd, the general election was held for the election of the United States in 2 Georgia Senate races. According to Secretary Raffensperger, in the presidential general election, 2,457,880 votes were cast in favor for Donald Trump, and 2,472,002 votes were cast for Joseph Biden. According to Secretary Raffensperger, in the general election for one of Georgia's United States senators, 2,458,665 votes were cast for Senator David Perdue. 2,372,086 votes were cast for Jon Ossoff. As a result, a runoff election between the senators will occur on January 5th, 2021. According to Secretary Raffensperger, in the special election for the other of Georgia's United States senators held on November 3rd, 1,271,106 votes were cast for Kelly Loeffler, and 1,615,402 votes were cast for Reverend Raphael Warnock. As a result, the runoff election between Senator Loeffler and Reverend Warnock will occur on January 5th. That's a pretty big discrepancy of votes. That's 400,000 votes. That's a lot. or 340,000 votes. I wasn't following how close that race was. That's a lot less close than I thought. Okay, here we go. Secretary Raffensperger directed a full hand recount of all ballots in the state of Georgia to be completed by Wednesday, the 18th. That's coming up. He declared that for the hand recount, per the instructions given to counties as they conduct their audit-triggered full hand recounts, designated monitors will be given complete access to observe the process from the beginning. While the audit-triggered recount must be open to the public and media, designated monitors will be able to observe more closely. General public and the press will be restricted to a public viewing area. Designated monitors will be able to watch the recount while standing close to the election workers conducting the recount. Political parties are allowed to designate a minimum of 2 monitors per county at a ratio of 1 monitor per party for every 10 audit boards in that county. Beyond being able to watch to ensure the recount is conducted fairly and securely, the 2-person audit boards conducting the hand recount call out the votes as they are recounted, providing monitors and the public an additional way to keep tabs on the process. Non-parties Amanda Coleman and Maria Diedrich are 2 individuals who volunteered to serve as designated monitors for the Donald J. Trump presidential campaign on behalf of the Georgia Republican Party at the hand recount. Attached hereto and incorporated herein are Exhibits B and C, respectively, are true and correct copies of the affidavit in support of Amanda Coleman and the affidavit of Maria Diedrich. Affidavits set forth various improprieties, insufficiencies, and improper handling of ballots by county officials and their employees that Ms. Coleman and Ms. Diedrich personally observed while monitoring the hand recount. For example, Ms. Coleman was directed to arrive at the hand recount between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. on November 15th. Ms. Coleman actually arrived at 9 a.m. As she arrived, she was informed by a large crowd that they had just finished the hand recount. Ms. Diedrich arrived at the hand recount at 8 a.m. on November 15th. 2020, Ms. Diedrich reports that by 9:15, officials announced that voting was complete and sent everyone home. The officials announced they had counted all the absentee ballots on November 14th at night, and they were already boxed up. That's a problem. That's a big problem right there. As a result of her observations of the hand recount as a Republican Party monitor, Ms. Diedrich declared there had been no meaningful way to review or audit any activity at the hand recount. As a result of their observations of the hand recount as Republican Party monitors, Ms. Coleman likewise declared there was no way to tell if any counting was accurate or if the activity was proper. There was no actual hand recounting of the ballots during the hand recount, but rather county officials and their employees simply conducted another machine count of the ballots. Okay. Count 1, First Amendment and equal protection. Plaintiff incorporates by reference everything said herein, blah, blah, blah. The right of qualified citizens to vote in the election involving federal candidates is recognized as a fundamental right under the 14th Amendment, which prohibits a state from denying to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. Equal enforcement of election laws is necessary to preserve our most basic and fundamental rights. The requirement of equal protection is particularly stringently enforced as to the laws that affect the exercise of fundamental rights, including the right to vote. Equal Protection Clause requires states to avoid arbitrary and disparate treatment of the members of its electorate. That is, each citizen has a constitutionally protected right to participate in elections on an equal basis with other citizens in the jurisdiction. Having once granted the right to vote on equal terms, the state may not, by later arbitrary and disparate treatment, value one person's vote over that of another. Among other things, this requires specific rules designed to ensure uniform treatment in order to prevent arbitrary and disparate treatments to voters. The right to vote extends to all phases of the voting process, from being permitted to place one's vote in the ballot box to having that vote actually counted. Thus, the right to vote applies equally to the initial allocation of the franchise as well as the manner of its exercise. Once the right to vote is granted, a state may not draw distinctions between voters that are inconsistent with the guarantees of the 14th Amendment. Treating voters differently thus violates the Equal Protection Clause when the disparate treatment is the result of arbitrary ad hoc processes. Indeed, a minimum requirement for non-arbitrary treatment of voters is necessary to secure a fundamental right to vote. Defendants are not part of the Georgia legislature and cannot exercise legislative power to enact the rules or regulations regarding the handling of defective absentee ballots that are contrary to the Georgia Election Code. By entering the litigation settlement and altering the process for handling defective absentee ballots in Georgia, defendants unilaterally and without authority altered the Georgia Election Code. This, again, this is a big problem, and this issue should be resolved in favor of this petition. All right? Whether or not that will actually translate to the results that they want, that remains to be seen. The result is that absentee ballots have been processed differently by county officials than the process created by the legislature and set forth in the election code. Further, allowing a single political party to write rules for reviewing signatures, as paragraph 4 of the litigation settlement provides, is not conducive to the fair conduct of primaries and elections or consistent with law. The rules and regulations set forth in the litigation settlement created an arbitrary, disparate, ad hoc process for processing defective absentee ballots, contrary to Georgia law that was utilized in determining the results of the November 3rd general election. Disparate treatment is not justified by, it is not necessary to promote any substantial or compelling state interest that cannot be accomplished by other less restrictive means. Where's this page? This page didn't load. Okay. Let me refresh this. Don't know why page 29 or 28 didn't load there. Okay. The foregoing injuries, burdens, and infringements that are caused by defendant's conduct violates equal protection of the 14th Amendment. Foregoing violations occurred as a consequence of defendants acting under color of state law, so they've got a 1983 claim. As a result of defendants' unauthorized actions and disparate treatment of defective absentee ballots, this court should enter an order, declaration, and or injunction that prohibits defendants from certifying the results of the 2020 general election in Georgia on a statewide basis. Alternatively, this court should enter an order, declaration, or injunction prohibiting defendants from certifying results of the general elections, which include the tabulation of defective absentee ballots, regardless of whether said ballots were cured. Alternatively, this court should enter an order, declaration, and or injunction that the results of the 2020 general election in Georgia are defective as a result of the above described constitutional violations, and the defendants are required to cure said deficiencies in a manner consistent with federal and Georgia law and without the taint of the procedures described in the litigation settlement. Plaintiff has no adequate remedy at law and will suffer serious an irreparable harm unless the relief requested herein is granted. So this is here. Let's go through real quickly their proposed solutions. As a result of their, this court should enter an order, declaration, and or injunction. It prohibits defendants from certifying the results of the 2020 general election in Georgia on a statewide basis. So no Georgia election results can be certified, which would then force the Georgia legislature to choose the electors. That would be the result. Or not choose electors, as it were. Number two, that's a huge remedy. It basically says that nobody's votes in Georgia get to be counted. Will the court do this? I doubt it. But that's the big ask. Alternatively, enter an order prohibiting defendants from certifying the results of general elections which include the tabulation of defective absentee ballots regardless of whether said ballots were cured. So rather than decertifying the entire election results, just decertify any voting count that had defective absentee ballots. Not decertify the ballots, decertify all of the votes in any precinct that had it, or any election count. So any box, I guess. Again, a very big ask, because it stands to reason that if there are defective absentee ballots, that they're widespread across the state, not just concentrated into one spot. But maybe they aren't. Maybe they aren't. I don't know. They don't go into what that would look like. And then in the alternate, the court should declare that the 2020 general election in Georgia are defective as a result of the above described constitutional violations. Defendants are required to cure the deficiencies, which would mean another recount. That's what this would be, I would assume. Another recount, but without the litigation settlement information. So that's a possibility. Depending on how quickly this moves, that would be a possible remedy. I mean, I guess all of it's possible. This is the most likely remedy. Hand recount it quickly, but without the procedures that you put in above. They're likely to say they already did that, in all honesty. Even if, whether or not they did, that'll be the argument. We did that consistent with the law. These two remedies are huge. Huge. We're talking about throwing out an entire state, or perhaps an entire major metro area's worth of votes. Hundreds of thousands of votes going away, to potentially millions of votes. That's a big remedy. That's a big remedy. And when I say a big remedy, I mean, I'll translate that to very unlikely. So, we'll see. We'll see. The Electors Clause states that each state shall appoint in a manner as the legislature thereof may direct a number of electors for president, U.S. constitutional. So this is a violation of the Electors and Elections Clause. Yep. U.S. Constitution, Article 2, Section 1, Clause 2. Likewise, the Elections Clause of the U.S. Constitution states that the time, places, and manners of holding elections for senators and representatives shall be prescribed in each state by the legislature thereof. Notice, time, place, and manner for senators and representatives. Times is not for the president. Secretary Raffensperger is not part of the Georgia legislature and cannot exercise legislative power. Further, because the U.S. Constitution reserves for the Georgia legislature the power to set the time, place, and manners holding elections for president and Congress. It's not president and Congress, Lynn. It's just Congress. The administrators have no authority to unilaterally exercise that power. See, I think why I'm being a stickler on this is because I think they should go after the time on the presidential election. They're violating the Constitution for the president by allowing late ballots. The Georgia legislature, because if the Georgia legislature can just allow late ballots, then they can just allow late ballots. But they can't. To unilaterally exercise that power, much less to hold them in ways that conflict with existing legislation. By entering the litigation settlement, Secretary Raffensperger imposed a different procedure for handling defective absentee ballots that is contrary to the code. Procedure set forth in the settlement is not consistent with the laws of the state of Georgia. Defendants are not the Georgia legislature, and their unilateral decision to implement rules and procedures regarding absentee ballots that are contrary to the Georgia election code constitutes a violation of the electors and elections clauses of the United States. Foregoing violations occurred as a consequence of defendants acting under color of state law. So again, 1983 claim. As a result, and disparate treatment, this court should enter an order prohibiting the defendants from certifying the results. So same three alternatives here. Count 3, due process violation. This is the disparate treatment. Let's see. Let's read what they got here. 14th Amendment protects the right to vote from conduct by state officials which seriously undermines the fundamental fairness of the electoral process. Treating voters differently violates equal protection. Minimum requirement for non-arbitrary treatment of voters is necessary in a statewide and federal elections conducted in Georgia, including without limitation. November 3rd general election, the hand recount, and the upcoming runoff election. All candidates, political parties, and voters have a vested interest in being present and having meaningful access to observe and monitor the process. Defendants have a duty to guard against deprivation of the right to vote and ensure that all candidates and political parties have meaningful access to observe and monitor the electoral process, including, without limitation, the election, the hand recount, etc. Rather than heeding these mandates and duties, defendants arbitrarily and capriciously denied or allowed county officials to deny Trump campaign meaningful access to observe and monitor the electoral process, as is further set forth in the affidavits. Defendants intentionally and or arbitrarily and capriciously denied plaintiff and the Trump campaign access to and or obstructed actual observation of the monitoring of the absentee ballots. Defendants have acted and will continue to act under color of state law to violate the right to vote and due process. As a result of defendants' improper actions, this court should enter an order that any recount, including but not limited to the hand recount, be performed consistent with this court's declaration. The monitors designated by the Republican Party have the right to be present to meaningfully observe all election activity from the receipt of a ballot to the entry or tabulation of the resulting vote. As to the hand recount, any reconducting of the hand recount and the upcoming January 5th runoff election, that plaintiff and the Republican Party be given at least 24 hours notice prior to any and all election activity. That all ballots cast in Georgia be read by 2 persons employed by the county officials, with said readings being overseen by Republican Party designated monitors. That the Republican Party immediately receive certified copies of all ballot envelopes and requests for absentee ballots received by defendants. And further, that the Republican Party has the right to compare voter or application signatures on ballot envelopes and requests for absentee ballots with ENET. And that for the upcoming January 5th, 2021 runoff election, the Republican Party has the right to have absentee ballot watchers monitors present at all signature verification processes from the receipt of the request for a ballot. Okay. So, yeah, they need to have, they want all of these things. And this is more reasonable. Again, it's in the event that there's another recount. These are more reasonable requests than declaring the entire election void in Georgia, which again it's an unlikely remedy. So there's the prayer for relief. We're not going to read through it because we just read what they're asking for. Can they legally film the recount? I don't know. They should be able to. I don't know if they can, but that should be a law. Here's a certificate of service, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to read through the compromise settlement. We could maybe check out the affidavits real quick because they're kind of short. I volunteered to be a monitor. Miss Edmonds of the Republican Party. And this is maybe a problem. Told me to arrive at 285 Andrew Young International Boulevard between 8 and 9 on the morning of November 15th. After I made a series of phone calls ending with Matthew Honeycutt, he gave me directions to go to the bottom rear of the building to an employee entrance. I arrived at 9 a.m. As I arrived, a large crowd was leaving, saying that they had just finished the recount. Another volunteer and I walked into the counting area to verify what had been said, to observe any activity as we've been requested to do so. Some conducting activity appeared to still be going on. Some counting, sorry. Signed in, then we were told there were too many volunteers on the floor and that we would not be permitted to walk the floor and observe. Saw a few people here and there walking the floor. There were no other observers at the tables where counting activity was happening. There were 2 people per table and they appeared to be sticking ballots into piles. We were not close enough to see much of anything else because we were not allowed. I believe that we were there to watch actual hand counting, as had been announced in the newspapers and by the Secretary of State when he requested a hand count. So then, yeah, no way to tell. So this is the only problem I see with the affidavit. If the person at the Republican Party got it wrong, if they allege that credibly, there might not be a remedy there. Like, sorry that they told you the wrong info. Then here we have this nice, like, water damaged one. This is good. I volunteered. I arrived at 8 to monitor the counting. By 9:15, and officials announced that voting was complete and sent everyone home. I spoke to a security guard who was shocked because he planned to be there until 10 p.m. He'd been at that location until 10 p.m. on the previous night. Officials announced they had counted up all the absentee ballots on November 14th at night, and they were already boxed up. The only ballots left to count were electronic ones, which were being counted in stacks or rows. Not consistent. There was no consistency on counting. Only a few tables were verbally doing the pass count, so there was no way to see that the correct candidate was being put into the correct pile. I observed that one counter seemed to be making piles of 9, but counting them as 10. It took a while for me to get someone to help me, so by the time they came to observe him, the batch was counted, and they did not make him recount the stack. Counters were writing the number of ballots for each candidate on scrap paper. No one had the same paper. Some was torn, some was colored. Not allowed in Georgia. And then adding manually, this is where I noted some manual entry errors. Specifically, when an elderly counter wrote down the number ballot, she couldn't remember the number. Person with her said a different number, and they finally agreed on a number. She added numbers on scratch paper before putting the number onto the official audit board batch sheet. The batch sheets were taken to our... See, that's a problem right there, right? Like, that's a nasty failure of the system. It's a circus. Of course it's a circus. They're counting 5 million ballots. It's going to be a disaster. It's going to be a disaster. The batch sheets were taken to Arlo to input, but there was no independent verification or monitoring of the numbers being input. 5 times I noticed tables with ballots on the table. Both workers had gone to get food. Ballots were left unattended. Drinks were on tables with the ballots. I noticed 2 tables of a single person counting. The partner had gone to get food. After I mentioned this to the election official, they told both tables to wait. 9 a.m. county officials announced there were too many party monitors and asked the Republican watchers to gather to decide which 17 would be on the floor. There were only 2 paid Republican campaign workers, and they tried to organize 17 from about 30 total personnel who had volunteered. Within 10 minutes, we had completed the reorganization. At that point, county officials told most of the counters to go home. There were probably 10 tables still counting. There had been no meaningful way to review or audit any activity. So, there's that. And then Linwood verifies. Great. So, Georgia's a mess. Hand recounts are messy. It's why hand counts of so many numbers are messy. They're prone to lots of errors. It's why we use machines. Not saying machines are great or anything. I'm just pointing out that that's why we've attempted to make the switch to machines. Because they presumably have less human error. Humans are going to make errors all over the place. Scyther Mantis, no. That's not how the logic follows from that. Not at all, but okay. Look, decertifying an entire state's vote is a big remedy. There's no other way to look around it. That's a huge ask. By the way, all of you who voted no, you didn't. It doesn't count. Sorry, try again in 4 years. That's a big remedy. That's not a controversial statement. The court is... Think about a court coming in and saying your vote didn't count for an entire fucking state. It's unlikely. Reduce the sped pills, buddy. Can I get Lynn on the show? Highly doubtful. Highly doubtful. Okay. All right. So that's Detroit. Oh, God. There's a hair on this page. I don't know if that's really a hair, but I was trying to brush it off my monitor. I was like, that's weird. It's not already the case that your vote doesn't count. It's already the case that your vote doesn't count when they decertify the vote. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Why don't I listen to Bannon and Giuliani? There's lots of reasons. I want to see the official. I want to see the official stuff. Like Lynn, I like this. I'm not the hugest fan of Lynn Wood right now because of what's going on with Kyle Rittenhouse. That seems to be a giant problem for Kyle Rittenhouse. But I like this complaint. I think it's well drafted. It's just a long shot to get them to decertify the election results of an entire state. You can call me a Yankee fuck all you want. It doesn't make you smarter. Very silly. When has voting ever changed anything? Okay, now you're just trolling. Now you're just trolling. You have to be. No one is this dumb. Oh, what happens now? That's a good question. Well, this is at the district court in Georgia. They will first decide whether or not they can even hear it. Once they do that, if they decide to hear it, you know, the reason they may decide not to hear it is because this is a... Hold off before you bite my head off. This is an issue involving state election laws and the authority of the states to determine their own election laws. Now, they've provided lots of citations to Bush v. Gore, which federal courts intervened in state election law and presumably can do so again. But they have to make that decision. Whatever decision is made on that front, if they say no, this has to be filed in Georgia state court, what Linwood will do will appeal that. He'll appeal it to the appeals court and then to the Supreme Court, or maybe directly to the Supreme Court if he can. And then they'll try and resolve that issue. Maybe even filing a parallel case in state court while they're doing the appeal, because then whatever happens in the state court, they're going to appeal to the Supreme Court anyway. So that's the next stage here. Then the court will hear the case, and then they will decide. And they'll have to be doing this all on an extremely accelerated schedule because we only have until December 8th to certify the electors. So they have to get through all levels of appeal by December 8th. That's a very, very short timeline for court, and courts are going to be focused on these issues. So once they do that, you know, we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. This thing will be appealed by both parties no matter what happens. Or by the losing party no matter what happens. And then it'll have to go to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court will have to determine if they will review it or not. Scyther Mantis, I concede immediately. I'm terrible at chess. Terrible at chess. Here we go. What was the next thing we were going to talk about? But yeah, we'll have to see. For the record, in case anyone wants to call me a Yankee again, which I'm a Southern boy at heart. Please, you're hurting me. Please. For the record, I want more suits like Lynn Wood's suit. I want more suits that allege issues that are broad, that are constitutional issues, that involve remedies that can change the outcome. Some of the suits that they've had, that they've been dropping recently, and that's not a big deal. They're dropping them because they affect 2,500 votes, 4,500 votes. It's not enough to change the outcome, and they don't have time to spend on small issues, even though those issues are critically important. Critically important. Do I think he should concede? No. Never. I do not think he should concede. Presidential concessions are fictions. They're legal fictions. They don't matter. Because if Donald Trump conceded the presidency, right, and then the electors voted for Donald Trump, he's still president. Like, you can't, there is no, think about this. Here's the great conspiracy. You could get an agent in each party as the candidate, and then just have the one person who was a straw candidate resign and guarantee the presidency for the other person. That's not how elections work. That's not how elections work at all. Elections, presidential elections specifically, are decided by electors, not by presidential candidates. So no, I don't think he should concede. I don't think any presidential candidate should ever concede. Whether they should stop fighting is a different question. Do I think Trump should stop fighting? No. I want him to bring a better fight than they've been bringing. And if that means that the existing lawyers all step down and they bring in the potential crazy, like, Wild West lawyers like Lynn Wood or whatever. And when I call him a Wild West lawyer, look at his fucking profile picture. Look at it. No, if that's what they need to do, then do it. Put Giuliani on a case. Giuliani's out in the media. Put him on a case. File this shit. I want them to bring the fight. I want them to bring a fight that matters. Absolutely. So let's do it. Bring that out. Happy for it. That's what I've been saying. If you could read behind my, like, depression over what's going on for the past week, that's what I've been saying. Please bring suits that matter and can impact the election. And please present evidence. We want it. If there's a big arrest on Dominion software shit, arrest everybody. Do it. Do it now. You're running out of time. If they arrest all the Dominion software people on December 13th, it doesn't matter. Does that, are you with me? If they arrest everybody the day after the electors cast their vote, it no longer matters who they arrest. Your only goal then is impeachment, and then you've got Kamala Harris. Then you've got to impeach her. But they're not going to impeach Kamala Harris or Joe Biden because the Democrats still run the House. So it won't happen. They will? They will? Are you saying they will arrest the Dominion people? I mean, I'm pressing X to doubt. They're running out of time. Not only do they have to arrest them, they have to arrest them and credibly present evidence in time to change the results. That means they have to arrest them and then bring the evidence in a separate court, because here's some doomer pill for you. If they arrested every Dominion person today, there's no way that their criminal trial happens before December 8th. There's no way. It's impossible. It won't do it. It's not enough time. It would be prejudicial to the defendants. Sam, I'll interact with you. I don't see what you're saying all the time. How high is the probability that the high courts will bring forward fake evidence to combat real evidence? My guess is incredibly high. They have to weigh the evidence. Yeah. Manchurian Candidate movie party win. It's good idea. Oh my goodness. Oh, I hate this topic. I hate it. I want it to be done. I want all of the stuff out. I hate arguing with you guys on this stuff. Really do. If Trump does not win these recounts, what should he do on the way out? Appoint as many conservative judges as possible before December or January. Pardon everybody he wants to pardon. That's about it. That's about all he can do, really. Any executive orders he passes are going to be undone by Joe Biden very quickly. Because here's the rub. Here's the rub. The executive orders by Obama created massive programs that people rely on. So when Trump tried to undo them, cucked judges will say, oh, well, you can't just undo an executive order that way. But if Trump passed some executive orders that Biden would want to remove, Trump wouldn't be creating massive programs for people to rely on. So the same judges would say, oh, no, you can remove that one because it's bullshit. The reality is any president should be able to undo the executive orders of any other president just by undoing it. There's nothing else. There's no other argument there, but they've created this weird sort of standard where you have to justify, where a president has to justify undoing the executive order of the office of the president. Could the election be decided during Biden's term in Trump's favor? It could be, but it wouldn't change the outcome. Like if they went back and said that, oh, actually we decided Trump won, like Trump won the election, but the electors picked Biden, then that's who gets picked. Oh yeah, he could pardon Assange and Snowden. That would be good. He should do that. In my opinion, he should. Pardon John McAfee because he's funny. Trump would need to take evidence from an ongoing investigation into Dominion if they even have an investigation going on. Yeah, he would. He should. He should. You gonna drink yourself to sleep tonight? Nah. I'm not. I haven't, no liquor tonight. I was going to. But then I didn't. Let's see. Okay, I've got a bunch of chats to get through. Oh, I was gonna look at the Michigan thing. I'm gonna look at the Michigan thing. Because, again, if the news story was wrong and misled me, then I want to make sure we got it. I want to make sure we got it right. Let's see. Lawsuit that aimed to toss out election results in 3 Michigan counties has been withdrawn. I don't know if this is the Trump lawsuit, though. Let me see if I can find... Nope. This one. Michigan. This one hasn't been updated. It was Pennsylvania. Oh, yeah, it was Pennsylvania. That's right. Sorry. My brain is... It's on Rudy's tweet. Pull it up. Rudy should be proud. He is the top result of Rudy's in on Twitter. Let's see. Donald Trump campaign rejects media reports of changed Pennsylvania case. Here we go. Take a look at Breitbart here, who has a story. Who's this lady? The Trump campaign pushed back Sunday night against reports by the Washington Post and others that it had dropped major parts of its case challenging the election results in Pennsylvania. Post John Swain and Elise Vback reported the Trump campaign was abandoning the claim that election authorities invalidated over 600,000 votes by barring Trump election observers. That left a much smaller part of the case, namely the Democratic-run counties allowed voters to cure problems with their mail-in ballots, while Republican counties followed rules laid down by the state legislature did not. Trump campaign legal advisor Jenna Ellis. Oh, that's probably Jenna Ellis. Who appeared on Breitbart News Sunday on Sirius XM Patriot 125 shortly after the Post story came out, disputed its claims. The authors appeared to have missed paragraphs 142 to 150. Other campaign officials added to the criticism of the Post on Twitter. They also missed paragraph 4. Do not use the law firm of Swain and Viebeck. They're the WAPO activists who falsely wrote that we changed our case in PA. They didn't read paragraphs 132 to 150, which repeat all of the allegations. All right, let's see if we can find that case. Take a look at what's in the Pennsylvania case real quick. By real quick, I mean several hours. Here's the Democratic Party's challenge. Amended Republican complaint. Is this it? Filed 11/15. Looks like this is probably it. Go to... Oh, here. Go to paragraph 132 and take a look. Oh, yeah, here's the uneven treatment. Okay. So here's what did they say? Is 132 to 150. So we'll focus on that here. In every instance where an absentee or mail-in ballot is opened and canvassed by the county election board, poll watchers and canvass representatives are legally permitted to be present. Poll watchers and canvass representatives serve the important purpose of assuring voters, candidates, political parties, and political bodies who may question the fairness of the election process that the same is conducted in compliance with the law and is done in a correct manner, which protects the integrity and validity of the vote and ensures that all elections are free, open, fair, and honest. Kill notes, yeah. We're doing a movie tonight. I'm not sure which one yet. I'll tell you, and I'll do it before we do super chats. I'll announce what movie we're going to watch. Defendants have not allowed watchers and representatives to be present when the required declarations on envelopes containing official absentee and mail-in ballots are reviewed for sufficiency, when the ballot envelopes are open, and when such ballots are counted and recorded. Instead, watchers were kept by security personnel and metal barricade from the area where the review, opening, and counting were taking place. Now, here's a problem with this claim, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but I'm going to mention the problem. I mentioned it yesterday. I'll mention it again. And that is that Pennsylvania law was amended in March by the Republican legislature of Pennsylvania to not allow the monitoring and challenge, or not provide a legal avenue for the challenge of absentee or mail-in ballots. That's going to be an issue in this claim. Whether or not it's a big issue will remain to be seen. But I want to point out that the Republican legislature in Pennsylvania changed this law back in, I think it was March of this year. And so they said it's called a no-fault absentee or mail-in ballot. They passed this law. I don't know why you would pass this law, but they did. So this is going to be a problem, and it's probably why people assumed that this wasn't in there. And to be frank, that's why I believe the news story in a heartbeat. So that being said, let's go on. In Center County, the central pre-canvassing location was a large ballroom. The setup was such that the poll watchers did not have meaningful access to observe the canvassing and tabulation process of mail-in and absentee ballots. And in fact, the poll watchers and observers who were present could not actually observe the ballots such that they could confirm or object to the validity of the ballots. Yeah, the only thing they left in was the ability to challenge the ballot application. In Philadelphia County, poll watchers and canvass representatives were denied access altogether in some instances. In Delaware County, observers were denied access to a backroom counting area. After a court-ordered injunction, the poll watchers and canvass representatives were finally allowed in the backroom counting area on November 5th to observe, but for only 5 minutes every 2 hours. Look, that's fine. You can come in for 5 minutes every 2 hours and check on us. That's good. That's sufficient observation. During the allowed observation time in the backroom counting area, the observers witnessed tens of thousands of paper ballots. Other Pennsylvania counties provided watchers with appropriate access to view the ballots as required by Commonwealth law. However, defendants intentionally denied the Trump campaign access to unobstructed observation and ensured opacity, denying plaintiffs and the residents of Pennsylvania the equal protection of the law. With particular regard to the Philadelphia County Board of Elections, the board would not permit the Trump campaign's watchers to be within 6 feet of all aspects of the pre-canvassing process, in direct contravention of Commonwealth Court Judge Christine Fasano Cannon's November 5th order, requiring that all candidates, watchers, or candidate representatives be permitted to be present for the canvassing process pursuant to the law and be permitted to observe all aspects of the canvassing process within 6 feet. And that is a very important part of the rule, is because she did say within 6 feet. You also said while maintaining social distancing, but within 6 feet. The order required the Philadelphia Board of Elections to comply and allow watchers to be within 6 feet by 10:30 a.m., but at 10:35 a.m. the workers were denied entry. Instead, the board sent all of the workers on a break, previously workers receiving breaks on a rolling basis, and the commissioners met off-site. 2 hours later, the workers returned, and the watchers were allowed to be within 6 feet, but within 6 feet of the first row of counters only. Within a short period of time, the workers began working at other rows that were well beyond 6 feet, rendering it impossible for watchers to observe the rows that were more than 25 feet beyond the area where watchers were allowed. Moreover, during the course of the entire period, the workers repeatedly removed ballots, sometimes over 100 feet away, to do something with them, which Trump campaign's watchers were unable to observe. This is a problem. A big problem. Other counties in the Commonwealth afford watchers the right to be present, that is, to be able to meaningfully view and even read. And that is, I went through this the other day, the legal definition of presence is more than just being there. Presence is present in attention, in attendance, and able to observe. And that goes to elements of a state law, specifically the witnessing of will and trust documents. Witnesses to documents have to be present, not just physically in a room or location, but present and with knowledge of the events going on. Other county, never mind. To be meaningfully view and even read when official absentee and mail-in ballots are reviewed, being open, counted, or recorded as required by 3146.8b. It is estimated that 680,770 ballots were processed by the Allegheny and Philadelphia County Boards of Elections where no observation was allowed. Again, big problem. This is good. That's a big number. And the numbers were heavily in those two counties in favor of Joe Biden. So therefore, if they're able to attack this number, there's a reasonable possibility that they can garner enough votes to flip the election. I believe Allegheny and Philadelphia County, specifically Philadelphia County, was like 3-1 Biden, and Allegheny was like 2.5 to 3-1 Biden as well. So if they're able to challenge this, it contains sufficient votes to overturn the Pennsylvania election, which is, it's a pretty big disparity still. It's like 50 or 60,000 votes. But 3-1 out of almost 700,000 is obviously enough to do that. A shocking number of mail-in ballots have inexplicably appeared in the counties since the November 4th ballot reports. For instance, in Delaware County, Good. Bring this stuff. This is the stuff we've wanted to see alleged, and we want to see them bring evidence of it. This is the stuff we like. Augusto Pinochet. It depends. You're asking if the Philadelphia reporting like 100% plus turnout as well. Yes and no. Where's the lie is the question. It depends on when you looked at voter registration and if you accept a massive influx of same-day voter registrations that happened, and then of course don't account for the possibility of duplicated registrations for people doing that same day. So maybe is the answer. I don't know. And someone asked earlier, so the Democrats just ignored a judge's order. I mean, it looks like they're not the Democrats, but the counters. It appears they did. So a shocking number of mail-in ballots have inexplicably appeared. Delaware County, the county's Wednesday, November 4th report indicated the Delaware County reported it had received about 113,000 mail-in ballots and counted approximately 93,000 voted ballots. Then the next day, November 5th. November 4th is Wednesday, so they really should have received all ballots by Wednesday. No excuse, right? They should have received them by Tuesday. Should definitely have received them by Wednesday. The next day, November 5th, the Secretary of the Commonwealth report reflected that Delaware County had received about 114,000 ballots. Several hours later, Delaware County Solicitor reported to an observer that the county had received about 126,000 mail-in ballots and counted about 122,000. As of Sunday, November 8th, the Department of State's website reflects that the county had counted about 127,000 mail-in ballots. Plaintiffs have received no explanation for where an additional 14,000 voted ballots came from when they arrived or why they are included in the current count. And this is important, and this is a call out because the Supreme Court ordered any late ballots be segregated. Be segregated out. If they weren't segregated, we've got a big problem. Now, if they were segregated and still remain segregated, that's a different question. But we'll see. They were ordered to segregate any ballots that came in after November 3rd. Supreme Court is pro-segregation, undoing Brown v. Board. Mail-in ballots received after 8 p.m. on Election Day. Delaware County, an observer in the county office where mail-in ballots were counted, was told by the Delaware County Solicitor that ballots received on November 4th, 2020 were not separated from ballots received on Election Day, and the county refused to answer any additional questions. It's a big problem. Also in Delaware County, an observer in the county office where mail-in ballots were counted witnessed a delivery on November 5th of V-cards or USB drives in a plastic bag with no seal or accompanying paper ballots. Wait a minute. Do you guys not just walk around with baggies of USB drives? Like, that's what I do. I want my USB drives to look like a bad meth deal. Walk around with baggies of drives. I'm just throwing them out. $15, a drive. The V-cards or the USB drives were taken to the back counting room where observer access was limited. No opportunity to observe what happened to the V-cards or USB drives in the back counting room. Need for emergency judicial intervention. Equal Protection Clause mandates that the Commonwealth provide and use in every county the same statewide uniform standards and regulations when conducting statewide or multi-county elections involving federal candidates, including without limitation the standard and regulations provided for the casting and counting of votes. In other words, Equal Protection Clause requires that every county in the Commonwealth to enforce and apply the same standards and procedures for an election, and it does not allow a select few counties to either decline to enforce or employ those standards to develop their own contradicting standards. For statewide elections involving federal candidates, defendants' allowance by act or omission, or the collection and counting of in-person, provisional, and absentee and mail-in ballots in a manner and at locations that are contrary to the election code's mandatory provisions constitutes legislative action by the executive branch in violation of the Elections and Electors Clause of the U.S. Constitution. Finally, the defendant's lack of statewide standards and use of a patchwork of ad hoc rules that vary from county to county in a statewide election involving federal and statewide candidates violates equal protection. Because of the standards in the codes of standards in the conduct of statewide elections involving federal and state candidates, including without limitation the casting and counting of votes, are to be uniform, plaintiffs have a vested interest in ensuring that the electoral process is properly administered in every election district. However, the administration of the November 3rd general election across the counties of the Commonwealth, in particular, and in the named county election boards, was far from uniform and did not follow legal structures. Okay. So, let's now check and see what oh, come on. See if we can find this on the Wayback Machine. Mm-hmm. No response. Searching at Google and click cached. Okay, try that. Click cached. Here we go. Aha! Wahaha! Subverted, scumbags. Thank you for that. All right. President Trump's campaign on Sunday scrapped a major part of its federal lawsuit challenging the election results in Pennsylvania. Trump's attorneys filed a revised version of the lawsuit, removing allegations that election officials violated the Trump campaign's constitutional rights by limiting the ability of their observers to watch votes being counted. Trump and Rudy, come on. Call him Rudy. And Rudy Giuliani, his personal attorney, have said repeatedly that more than 600,000 votes in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh should be invalidated because of this issue. Trump's pared-down lawsuit now focuses on allegations that Republicans were illegally disadvantaged because some Democratic-leaning counties allowed voters to fix errors on their mail ballots. Counties have said this affected only a small number of votes. Cliff Levine, an attorney representing the Democratic Party in this case, said on Sunday evening that Trump's move meant this lawsuit could not possibly change the result. So, interesting that even the Democrat Party attorney got that wrong. Now you're only talking about a handful of ballots. Levine said it would have absolutely no impact on the total count and or Joe Biden's win over Donald Trump. In its revised lawsuit, the Trump campaign again asked U.S. District Court Judge Matthew Brand to block the certification of Pennsylvania's election results, but a secondary request to block the certification of all votes where observer access was allegedly restricted was deleted in the amended suit. Let's take a peek at that in the request for relief. So here we go. Let's see. Okay, so they don't write theirs in the... Let's just go down to the prayer for relief. Wherefore, in addition to any other affirmative relief that the court may deem necessary and proper, plaintiffs ask this court to enter judgment in favor and provide the following alternative relief. An order that prohibits the defendant county boards of elections and defendant secretary Bookvar from certifying the results of the 2020 general election in Pennsylvania on a Commonwealth-wide basis. Wait, what did they say that? Where the hell did I put it? Am I a terrible boomer? Yes. This one? Where did my thing go? How did I lose this? You watched me boomer it live. What the fuck? Did I close it? No, here it is. Jesus. Why is it there? Over here. Okay. Block certification of results, but a secondary request to block the certification of all votes where observer access was allegedly restricted was deleted. Okay. Sorry. In addition to the alternative request for relief, an order that prohibits defendants from certifying the results of the general elections, which include the tabulation of absentee and mail-in ballots, which defendants improperly permitted to be cured. Okay, so they might actually be... Yeah, they didn't... They're right on that one. They didn't have it in here. A temporary restraining order and preliminary injunction granting the above relief during the pendency. Reasonable costs and fees. So on this part, they're actually correct. They don't have that request in there. For whatever reason. For whatever reason. Trump campaign said late Sunday night that the revised version still contains assertions about the lack of access for observers in an introductory section. We're still making the strong argument that the ballots were counted in secret. Tim Murtaugh, the campaign's communication director, said in a statement, our poll watchers were denied the legal right to meaningful access. So they do mention that they're wrong here. That's weird. Currently, however, language alleging that the campaign's constitutional rights were violated as a result of the observer issue is no longer part of the suit detailing the formal counts. Okay, so they're saying it's not in the actual formal counts here, count 1 and 2. Oh my gosh. Let's see. Treating voters differently, standard list procedures, patchwork of different rules, and as between similarly situated absentee and mail-in voters, equal enforcement is necessary. Voters in some counties have been and are being treated differently for no good reason. A voter in any of the counties or by the boards who received notice of a defective mail-in ballot and an opportunity to cure it by correcting the ballot or by casting a provisional ballot has or may have had vote counted. Many voters who received no such opportunity will not. So that's the different standards on that one. And then here we go. Regulation of things. Let's see. Although the election code provides the procedures for casting and counting a vote by mail, does not provide notice and opportunity to cure. So they're right here. It's not in the formal counts. As to why it's not in the formal counts, I don't know. This is, you know, they have it in here, but this article is partly right as well. It's not in the formal counts or in the request for relief. Paragraph 150. Yes, they incorporate each of the prior allegations in the complaint. Yeah, but they don't specifically lay out this part for remedy. It's not fatal to the case, but it should be in there. They should add a count 3. Amend it again. Amend it today. Just add it back in. Let's see. Kelly Bookvar, Pennsylvania's Democratic Secretary of State, submitted a court filing in response to Trump campaign's actions, reiterating a request for the judge to dismiss the lawsuit, noting that the amended suit materially narrows the pending allegations to a single claim. The shift comes amid a string of losses in the Trump campaign's post-election legal effort, claimed without evidence that voter fraud or irregularities and rule breaking led to Biden's victory. Flurry of post-election litigation has affirmed the integrity of the election. That's not actually true at all. Many of the complaints have been tossed, and not a single vote has been invalidated. Well, no, not yet. Having the things not tossed, those would be longer questions. Earlier in the day, Trump suggested that his legal challenges would continue. Many of the court cases being filed all over the country are not ours, but rather those of people that have seen horrible abuses, he said in a tweet. Our big cases showing the unconstitutionality, the outrage of things that were done to change the outcome will soon be filed. Even as the campaign continued filing appeals in other Pennsylvania cases Saturday, became public on Sunday, the withdrawal of one of its most aggressive claims curtails a central part of its effort. Bias filing came on a day when Trump reiterated his intention not to concede. Blah, 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 blah. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court is considering a case on the dispute over observers' access to the vote count. Philadelphia authorities have asked the court to reverse a state appellate court's order to allow Trump campaign observers to watch the count from 6 feet away. The Democrat Party filed a brief in support of the city. Trump campaign alleges that Philadelphia officials kept observers behind a barrier that was too far. Yep, this one may be moot at this point, so that's a problem. But all right, so commentary. It's weird that they took it out of the formal counts. It's weird that they took it out of the formal counts. Very strange. That I don't understand why they would take that out of the formal counts and the request for relief, but leave it in the lawsuit. That's an odd stylistic choice. I don't know why they made it. I'm racking my brain as I'm talking, trying to fill time and figure out if there's any reason to do that. They should probably amend the complaint again, in all honesty. It's technically still in there. They don't ask for relief related specifically to it. Eagle loan, not until she's actually impeached. Am I going to cover that? Calls for impeachment have been... calls for impeachment for Trump happened from jump. And it took them 3 years to do it. So, no, I'm not going to cover it until they actually impeach her. Okay, so the other big story today, there was a county in Georgia where 2,500 votes just weren't counted. Those votes were counted, and it was a net gain of several hundred votes for Trump. No, maybe even 1,300 votes for Trump, something like that. It was quite a few in the scheme of things based on how close Georgia is. That kind of news is good news in regards to a recount going on, but it is limited good news. We have to see if there are other issues of that. This was allegedly not due to some sort of counting error. It seems like there was just a stack of votes. It was like, oh, we forgot to tabulate these. We forgot to do that, though. So, and again, this is why elections are such a mess. That wouldn't have happened without a recount. So who knows? But we'll have to see what happens with the rest of Georgia's recount. Although they're already saying, like we covered with Lynn Woodsuit, they're already saying that the Georgia recount is compromised. So that's tough. Please look at Trump's executive order on voter meddling and sanctions and law explain it for us, please. The one from 2019. I'm not going to do that on this show. Vienticus Prime has asked me to look at this for the past couple shows. So let's take a quick look at that. This is the Washington, D.C. Council bill. This is what I said, moderate partisan bill at the beginning of the show. And Democrats 8-1. It's very, very moderately partisan. The one is an independent. So, summary. As introduced, this bill permits a minor of any age to consent to receive a vaccine where the vaccination is recommended by the U.S. Advisory Committee of Immunization Practices. It also establishes that if a minor is able to comprehend the need for, the nature of, and any significant risks inherent in the medical care, then informed consent is established. So now minors can consent in D.C. for taking a vaccine. This only applies to Washington, D.C. But this was proposed in November. Looks like November 10th of 2020. Been postponed to November 17th of 2020. But the title is the Minor Consent for Vaccinations Amendment Act of 2019. So there you go. This was written back then, but it's had roll calls in October and November. First read in October. There you go. This is a great one. We could read the bill, I guess. So we read the summary. Whoops. So yeah, For purposes of this section, a minor shall be deemed meeting the informed consent standard if the minor is able to comprehend the need for, the nature of, and any significant risks ordinarily inherent in the medical care. So, of course, infants will be able to consent because they understand the need for a COVID vaccine. So there you go. I mean, it's nothing. There's not a lot to it. That's the intro. I guess we should check out the main bill. A minor 11 years of age or older may consent to receive a vaccine where the minor is capable of meeting the informed consent standard, and the vaccine is recommended by the U.S. Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, where receipt of the vaccine is accorded with ACIP's recommended immunization schedule. So this is going against the anti-vax movement. Providers who administer immunizations under the authority of the subsection shall seek reimbursement without parental consent directly from the insurer, which may be Medicaid, Alliance, or private insurance. Insurers shall not send an explanation of benefits for services provided under the authority of this section. Oh, this is great. Remember when your 11-year-old was good at requesting medical care that they need? This is HPV. Minor who receives services provided under the authority of this subsection shall have access to their immunization records without parental consent. Section 3, Section A of the Student Healthcare Act of 1985 is amended as follows. If parent is utilizing a religious exemption for vaccinations or is opting out of receiving the human papillomavirus, HPV vaccine, but a minor is receiving vaccinations under Chapter 6, Title 22B of the District of Columbia Municipal Regulations, then a healthcare provider shall leave the immunization record in Part 3 blank and shall submit the immunization record directly to the minor's school. The school shall keep this record confidential, except it may share the record with the Department of Health or the school-based health center. So that's great. There you go. Children receiving medical care without parental consent, and then the state concealing the record of the medical care from the parents of said children, based entirely on religious preference. Fantastic. Oh, here in the summary, they do have the HPV mentioned. But this would apply to any ACIP recognized immunization. It's not, I mean, it looks like it's targeting HPV specifically, but it would apply to really any recommended vaccination. Polio, MMR, all sorts of them. So that's great. Good job, Washington, D.C. If you are raising kids in Washington, D.C., have fun. I would never do it. That sounds absolutely terrible and atrocious already. But I'm sure ACIP won't recommend the COVID vaccination, so don't worry about that either. Oh gosh. All right, guys. Let's do super chats and we'll wrap up the show. Oh, I'm supposed to say what we're watching on Twitch tonight. Hold on. I'm consulting the watch list. Let's do... I've got a list here. I'm not going through the whole list. I'm going through a very specific list. I'm in the mood for Goofy. Let's do American Ninja 2. We'll do American Ninja 2 for the watch party. Should be fun. We're not going to watch Twilight, no. American Ninja 2 for the first movie. All right, let's do these chats. We've got Basilos Jebedios Bushios. Breaking news, election update. Out of nowhere, I am now the Emperor of the Eastern Roman Empire. Please clap. So there you go. Derpy Jew, I'm not doing Steel Shark for the second movie. No. Crusader Saracen says, so I just learned that Sidney Powell is on Trump's legal team. Don't know if it'll succeed, but if she can't do it, then nobody can. That woman is a freaking assassin. I guess. We'll see. Color me skeptical. But, I hope my mind is changed. Big Red Bear says there won't be sufficient voter fraud to switch the election. Polls were wrong, certainly, but it's not impossible that Trump put off enough people who voted by mail. When I said it's all over but the crying, I didn't think it'd go on this long. Oh, no, it's going to go on through December and probably for years. Big Red Bear. Silky Johnson says, Nick, I wish the framers would have added a few unorthodox methods of deciding the president. For instances such as our current gay op-like deaf spoken word poetry jams, pie eating contests, or the first to get a picture of Michelle Obama's alleged penis. Okay. Donald Trump says, Nick, you have the best, most amazing, and tremendous show ever. It's beautiful. Today I ate my lunch. No one eats lunch like I do. It was beautiful. I had the most delicious watercress and cucumber sandwich and hand-squeezed lemonade and a fresh cookie. Beautiful. Wonderful cookies. Thanks, Donald Trump. Glad you're a fan of the show. Biden the Cold One says, Timmer is a furry. Blaine20 says, Amazon employees arrested for stealing $500 million worth of iPhones. Holy crap. Coldfade 2A wannabe Hunan Muhammad says, Nick is woke and broke. I wanna remind people that the stealing of iPhones by employees of places or any cell phone is something that just doesn't get investigated. It's chalked up as an easy loss. It's amazing. I know this because when someone used my Google account to purchase two Galaxy 4 XLs, and I reported it to Google, they unequivocally stated that I must have done it. And I'm like, but I didn't order them. I didn't get them. And I'm telling you so you can shut them down because they were stolen. And they're like, nope, you did it. That doesn't make sense. It doesn't make any sense. But it would cost them more than the $1,500 to try and track it down and go after it. So they just chalk it up as a loss. They don't care. Colfate 2A wannabe Hunan Muhammad says, Nick is woke and broke. Damn it. Solemn says, you sure that IRS letter isn't from Angry Bainling? No, I'm not. I'll look for typos in it. Eugene Ford says, can Biden override the 3 branches of government? I've been saying for the past several years that the federal executive has more power than we've seen because they just haven't exercised it. So we'll see what happens. Biden the Cold One says, we never give you money. Joshua says he's just jealous that we heart to pay a grift daddy. Oh, thank you. WHMW says, did Twitter just violate Citizens United versus FEC? No. No, if anything, they complied with it. So did I sue Google? No, I got my money back from my bank. Didn't waste time with Google. Vienticus Prime says, social media fact-checking means high school graduates telling people with PhDs what's factually accurate in their own fields. Yeah. Yep. MGTOW Gaming says, if you voted Biden, no takebacks, you get what you deserve. I wanted a fair election. Now I want blood. Rot in your commie cities, lol. Damn. Anime Moon says, I bet the voicemail is get analingus in Minecraft by the Ender Dragon while wearing a Cosby sweater and getting teabagged or something like that. Did you send the voicemail, Anime Moon? Did you do that? MGTOW Gaming says, if you voted for Biden, no takebacks. You get what you deserve. Elections have consequences, lol. I'm still winning even if Trump loses. Lockdown inbound. Angry Bainling says, your hair is a fiasco today. Woo, that's because I was sleeping on it. Automata says, did you see Carl Jobs' videos covering Twin Galaxies countersuit on Billy Mitchell? No. I heard it was coming. I'll be talking to Carl about it. The countersuit is interesting for sure. And I'm going to see if the Twin Galaxies lawyers and Carl would like to come on and talk about it. Wait, where the hell did it go? If nothing else, quite the picture of ongoing corruption. I mean, I hope people would be interested in having the actual lawyers for that case come on. I think that'd be cool. Fox Anderson says, Twin Galaxies is filing a multi-million-dollar suit against Billy Mitchell and Walter D. Please cover. See Carl's new vid. Have him on again. This is big gamer news. Yeah, I'm up for it. I like Carl. He's a good dude. Seems to be good. And if we can get him and the lawyers on, or even just him, I'm fine with that too. But Luthien the Mortal says, ever wonder how they hire these people to count ballots? Maybe they specifically target areas to promote the job in their favor. No, I don't wonder about it. It's a disaster. So I don't wonder about it. Skeetneat says, Nick, when will you invite Wang and Linkara on the show? You should live stream Kickassia on YouTube sometime. I don't know why I'd invite Linkara on, but I will invite Wang on. I love that guy. And I've had positive interactions with him in the past. So happy to do that. Mr. Schwagen says, can you look at the executive order Trump signed September 12th, 2018 regarding sanctions and election meddling? Voting machines in Dominion are foreign made, big tech affected. Yes, but not today, because it's already 2. Alien 8 says, hang in there, Nick. Peace. Oh, thanks. Thanks, I will. Tet says, involved in an extremely stupid lawsuit on the winning side, but one event to friends. How long should one wait until after class action to talk? After class action? Are you a representative of the class? Otherwise, you should be able to talk about it whenever you want. But if you're a representative of the class and are working with the lawyers, you probably want to be, you probably want to talk to them about it. Javier Miedo says, under this section, if 10 million ballots arise in swing states for Trump, would they have to count them if received prior to the certification? Maybe. Maybe. It'd be pretty funny, but no. It's such a weird hypothetical, because how would it happen and how would it happen now would be big questions. Bad Dragonite says, still planning on watching The Boys this November. Maybe. Watching a series is getting increasingly difficult with my schedule, but we'll see. But I am considering it still. All right, guys. That's the show. Oh, my body. Broken. By the way, yesterday I played Phasmophobia on Twitch. If you missed it, that was a lot of fun. I'll be looking to play Phasmophobia, rotating in some other players and stuff with more people soon, because it was a blast. Ulash1 says, Linkara was quick to denounce Vic. That's why you haven't had him on. If you do get him on, ask him about his relationship with Juwario. That's not why I haven't had him on. I don't ever remember he exists, because I just don't know anything about him at all. If you can get Lin Wood, would I have him on? Absolutely, I'd have Lin Wood on. I just don't think he'd come on. But yeah, I'd be happy to have him on. Okay. Here we go. Here's the, we're going to play the outro. And I'll see you guys in just a few minutes over on Twitch. All right? See you guys in just a minute. Have a good night. Peace. Peace. Oh, and if you enjoyed the show, please hit like. Please hit like on every show. Oh my God, please hit like.
Oh, he drinks a fair bit, but you realize that it just helps get his noggin jogging.
Colfate2A wannabe Hunan Muhammad says, yay, had my chat read twice. Here's some extra. Thank you.
Sleep tight. We'll hear some Latesplaining tonight. With his microphone muted, we'll laugh at this boomer until he explains it's all part of the plan. Watch his face become redder as he becomes madder, raging at idiots from Twitter and Erland. From the white shores of Maine to the hills of Glen one who explains the law better than Nick. So pour out a glass for the ones who have passed to make the law what we have now. Oh, his lady is fair, and she handles herself with the grace of one who has borne many children. As the wife of a lawman, she makes sure that he has the time and the place to provide for them there. So pour out an ardbeg, a bow, more of love for the spirits flow as the ones who get unemployed. So pour out a glass for the tea post on Twitter as we hear Latesplaining tonight. From the wide shores of Nan to the hills of Glenlivet, there's no one who explains the law better than Nick. So pour out a glass for the ones who have passed to make the law what we are now. Oh, the guests are all plenty folks, from Doug T to Drexel. They bring their perspective and spice to the mix. But the reason we're here and the one that we cheer is the one who is showcasing us his career. Get unemployed. So pour out a glass for the tea post on Twitter as we hear Latesplaining tonight. From the wide shores of Nan to the hills of Glenlivet, there's no one who explains the law better than Nick. So pour